Chapter 161 _ Quick, wake up the general, the enemy is coming. Too late. Thousands of meters apart, Chin Luo snorted coldly. Lightning and thunder, thunder beast. Bang. The sky above the general's mansion was dense but not scattered, and the dark clouds that never dissipated even when the other black clouds were swept away by the explosion suddenly burst, and the white and sacred thunder beasts floated in the sky at an altitude of 1,000 meters, and the dazzling thunder light dyed the world white. Surrounded by a few white auspicious clouds, the thunder beast roared and swooped down. Thump. Boom. The entire general's mansion and the surrounding blocks were submerged by lightning under this strike, and the terrifying electric current continued to spread and crawl along the ground, forming thousands of thunder and lightning pythons, rolling and roaring. In the dazzling thunder, a shrill scream sounded. Kurozumi Orochi was getting up from the couch in a daze, and the next second was hit by the thunder. If it wasn't for his amazing physique for Zone, the unicorn he ate would be able to electrocute him into coke. Bang! In the blackened wreckage of the house, Kurozumi Orochi tore off his shattered nightgown and stood up from the collapsed debris, roaring. Fulu Shou, what are you doing? He was hit by the enemy and hurt himself. This was not his original intention to dispatch his confidants to take over Yutingfan. Hearing the roar, Fulu Shufei came to Kurozumi Orochi. Ahem. Sorry, General. My subordinate. Woo. It's my subordinate's dereliction of duty. Kurozumi Orochi frowned as he looked at Fulu Shou, whose dark skin was fragrant. Even he was severely injured like this, proving that the enemy is definitely not very human. Looking up, noticing that a large area including the general's mansion was leveled, Kurozumi Orochi took a deep breath and asked in astonishment. What's the matter? This is also done by the enemy. Within a 1-kilometer radius, any buildings higher than the ground collapsed, and those Yuting fans who survived in the ruins screamed in pain, proving that they were also included. With such a huge attack range, even 100 beasts and 3 disasters can't do it, right? Etc. It's lightning. Kurozumi Orochi was completely awake at this time, and his heartbeat suddenly accelerated, dragging the battered Fulu Shou. Who is the enemy? Such as, cough. If the subordinate guessed correctly, it should be the first emperor. Chin Luo. This was also what Fu Lushou suddenly thought of, and at the same time he was wondering why Chin Luo appeared here. Damn Chin Luo, how dare he! Kurozumi Orochi threw away Fulu Shou, looked at the sky, and roared loudly. Chin Luo, what are you doing here? Kaido is not here, I have no reason to fight with you. No, you are here, it is the war between us. Suddenly, a cold voice sounded from the side. But Kurozumi Orochi was not surprised but delighted, reached out and probed, and a sharp knife slashed fiercely in the direction of the voice. He is not only a mythical fruit power user, but also one of the most powerful swordsmen in Wano Kuni, specializing in double swordsmanship. At the beginning, even Kaido's carelessness was slashed out by him, leaving blood marks in his mouth. Otherwise, why would Kaido agree to cooperate with him? Laugh. Was a sound of tearing flesh from the blade. Kurozumi Orochi grinned Isho, looking back to see his own victory, but the next second was horrified. The sharp blade did tear something, but it wasn't Chin Luo. Looking at Fulu Shou's dead eyes, Kurozumi Orochi's pupils shrank. Laser cannon. Hum. The humming sound shocked the soul, and the dazzling blue arc lingered on Fulu Shou's 2-part corpse. Chin Luo grinned and fired it as a cannonball. Pop. Whoa. It was impossible to escape from such a close distance. The body smashed on Kurozumi Orochi's body and exploded into blood under the alternating force of the two forces, smashing him. The odd-smelling lump fell on his lips, but Kurozumi Orochi felt more panic than nausea. Not good. I'm careless. Swish. Leaning over to avoid the slashing blow from his right hand, Chin Luo lowered his hand and pressed it forward, then stood up abruptly and pinched his palm on his face. The speed was unreasonably fast, but there was no time for him to be stunned. The moment Fu Lushou's body exploded, There was no effective counterattack, and Chinluo had been given enough opportunities to attack. The lightning sticks gathered together and exploded at zero distance under Kurozumi Orochi's terrified gaze. Bang! The earth was trembling frantically. Facing Kurozumi Orochi's powerful, forcibly compressed and exploding divine cannon, the power was extremely terrifying. The ground within tens of meters in front of Chinluo instantly disintegrated, and the terrifying thunder and lightning destroyed it wantonly, leaving deep ravines on the ground. However, despite this, with Chinluo as a watershed, he was not damaged in the slightest, proving his incomparably powerful control over Lei Ting. The hardness is good, and it didn't blow up the bones. Vivi savored the touch just now. Chinluo raised his head and sneered, looking at the direction where Kurozumi Orochi flew out. Then feel more pain, Kurozumi Orochi. Chinluo lifted it up. Shots of meteor spears transformed from thunder and lightning spread all over the sky, like dense stars. In the horrified eyes of the people of Wano-kuni Flower City, the spears of thunder gods pierced the night sky and bombarded the distant sky. Boom! Boom! Outside the capital of flowers, at the crossroads. Boom! The densely packed Thor's spear poured down like a torrential rain and swept out, producing a deafening explosion. This kind of destructive attack is difficult to understand without experiencing it in person. It is very different from watching lightning and thunder on the ground and watching fire splashing in an airplane. Not good. This kind of lightning. It's the first Emperor Chinluo. There were also people in Yudingfan who recognized the source of thunder and lightning, and immediately shouted in horror. The shadow of the famous Tree of People, Chinluo's name has been resounding in the New World recently, and he is recognized as the strongest new star in the new era. The people of Yudingfan immediately went to support Kurozumi Orochi and protect the Lord, which is the most important thing at this moment. ... Bang! Bang bang! The intensive bombardment lasted for a full 10 seconds, and suddenly an invisible and intangible pressure broke out, and Kurozumi Orochi's angry roar appeared in the center of the thunderlight. Bastard! Asshole! Boom! It seemed that something with an exaggerated weight fell to the ground, and the dull impact sounded with vibrations, making people unsteady to stand. This sense of touch. 8 tails, 8 heads, connected to one body. Chinluo's forehead was flickering with the thunder god's seal, and then he opened his eyes. The legendary mythical, is it Orochi of Yaki? Different from Xiangliu and Jiaying, the most notable feature of Yaki Orochi is that it has 8 tails. Chinluo. In the thunderlight, the huge shadow let out bursts of roars, which were different from ordinary snakes. Kurozumi Orochi in the form of Yagi Orochi was covered in scorch marks and his flesh was blurred. Fortunately, as long as he doesn't kill him in one hit, he can recover. These wounds healed rapidly at a speed that was incomparable to Ron but countless times faster than ordinary people, and new transparent scales grew under the cracked scales, filling the gaps. 2. Chapter 162 _ At this time. Are you looking for me? Swish. The tall figure stepped into the air, holding a Shincheng thunder spear hardened into a weapon, and appeared in front of a snake head. Kurozumi Orochi instantly widened 16 eyes, and the closest eyeball was even more terrified. So fast. It's almost impossible to react at all. He even had some regrets. Why did he talk too much? However, Chinluo would not give him time to regret. Thunder God is shining. Chinluo raised his arm, and the weightless thunder spear rolled up an earth-shattering violent thunder tornado in the process, spreading invisible power. Everything around seemed to be in a state of stagnation, and was immediately attracted by lightning, involved and turned into powder. Kill. Click. At the critical moment, he suddenly tilted his head back, engulfing endless destruction. The breathless thunder spear was nailed to the scales around his lips, making a crisp and pleasant impact. Block. Block it. Kahuhuhuhuhu. Kurozumi Orochi was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. Although the scales around the mouth were abruptly pried off like a corn kernel with a screwdriver, it did not penetrate directly. Seeing this, Qin Luo said with emotion. Scales. Zone has rough skin and thick flesh, and the type with scales is congenitally put on a layer of iron, which belongs to the category with a higher starting point in Zone. And as the Zone powerhouse standing at the forefront, whether it is Kaido or Kurozumi Orochi, their scales are really hard enough to make ordinary people despair. But while Kurozumi Orochi was laughing wildly, Qin Luo didn't spread his attack because of this. He let go of the thunder spear and touched the end, and Shin's long fingers lifted the thunder spear like a billiard cue. Huh. Kurozumi Orochi froze for a moment and thought, what is he doing? In the next second, Qin Luo gave the answer. Click. With the wind and thunder whistling, Qin Luo violently held the thunder spear with his left hand, squeezed his fist with his right hand, and smashed the end of the thunder spear heavily. Broken. Boom. Ouch. The ear-piercing explosion and the screams sounded at the same time, and the thunder spear was like a nail, piercing deeply into the flesh until it penetrated from the back of the head. The 50-meter-high Yaki Orochi suddenly rolled on the ground frantically in pain, smashing a large forest land. Everyone knows that the fingers are connected to the heart, but they forget that apart from the fingers, the skin is the most sensitive. Under the unique facial structure of snakes, this attack directly pulled through half of his face, and then fell into the eye socket and shot through the skull. Bastard. Asshole. Kurozumi Orochi looked at Qin Luo viciously. The remaining 7 heads and 14 eyes opened his mouth wide at him with ferocious malice. Are you coming? Qin Luo silently narrowed his eyes and raised his vigilance. Kurozumi Orochi can't just be beaten passively, and a counterattack is bound to come. In addition to their special physique, Mythical also possesses certain special abilities, which allow them to have a destructive power that is no weaker than Paramesha and Logia in addition to their physique bonuses. This is also the reason why Mythical is more sought after and more precious than Logia. Redfield's vampire fruit can drink human blood to restore youth, and Marco's phoenix fruit has undead blue flame and can even heal targets other than himself. Kaido's blue dragon fruit can control the atmosphere, supporting his huge boundless body to fly in the sky, and spray a hot torrent. So what are the special abilities of the Orochi fruit of Yaki? Frost, fire, mire, poisonous mist. Under Qin Luo's astonished gaze, the 7 heads surged with different powers and sprayed out neatly. Except for the head closest to Qin Luo, that is, the one in the middle, which sprayed poisonous mist alone, the other 6 heads were paired in pairs. It turned out to be 4 powers. Qin Luo was shocked. Wait, if it's a pair of 2. He lowered his head suddenly, and sure enough, the soft, drooping head suddenly widened with one eye, and a foul-smelling green poisonous smoke was ejected from its mouth, blocking his retreat upwards. Fuck me, bastard. Kurozumi Orochi roared wildly. At this distance, his abilities can be fully covered, which can also be regarded as making up for the drawbacks that the fighting technique cannot play in the form of a complete beast. In the future, Blackbeard Teach, who will be making a lot of noise in the future, can use 2 fruit abilities in the war on the top, which has surprised the world, and Kurozumi Orochi has 4 special abilities. Orochi form of his body, it is a combination of 5 abilities. Everyone noticed the thick green smoke that appeared and disappeared under Gecko, and suddenly took a breath. The highly toxic smoke is the easiest to spread, so that the entire forest with no end in sight is like a cloud valley in the mountains, and a huge amount of fog is transpired in an instant, but the color is extremely infiltrating. The faintly green forest did not become more dazzling, but the green leaves that came into contact with the poisonous mist quickly dried up and turned yellow, and then rotted and fell off. The poisonous gas is spreading. Run, this is the general's bone-eating poison, and there is no cure. Yuding Fanzhong obviously knew better than Qin Luo the terrible ability of Orochi, and immediately gave up the attack and seized the opportunity to flee. In the forest, the cross-sprayed flames ignited the forest fire, and the evaporating air further spread the poisonous smoke. Countless animals didn't have time to escape. Before they were burned to death and frozen to death, they turned into pus in the poisonous smoke.
Quote.
Who? Spraying for a few minutes, Kurozumi Orochi stopped and took a deep breath. This time, even that monster doesn't feel good. Kurozumi Orochi thought out of breath. The mire and poisonous smoke are in the sky and the ground, completely blocking the enemy's range of action, and the light is not weaker than the frost and flames of the strong like Kuzan in terms of strength. Blocking the air between freezing and burning can make opponents feel extraordinary torment. This attack has no disadvantage and is Kurozumi Orochi's magic weapon. So what's the result? Thinking of this, he held his breath and looked cautiously into the depths of the thick fog. Next second. Zzz. A weak but extremely harsh-sounding electric current burst appeared in the central area, and Chin Luo's calm voice echoed in the silent forest. Good lung capacity, Kaido's breath won't last as long as you. What? Impossible. Kurozumi Orochi suddenly widened his pair of eyes in disbelief, looking horrified. How can you possibly be okay? Even if he couldn't kill him, it should have caused great trauma to him. Chin Luo is not as talented as Kaido, is he not an ordinary Logia? Pat. The crisp footsteps sounded, and a shadow walked step by step to the water vapor area where the frost was transpiring. Kurozumi Orochi's mouth twitched when he noticed the black area surrounding the shadow. Chapter 163_. Could it be that? The power is really good. As far as frost is concerned, Kuzan Admiral may not be able to maintain this intensity for a long time. Chin Luo's eyes were smiling, but the depths were full of coldness and murderous intent. He grinned Isho and said lightly, but unfortunately you are Zone, and you will never be able to touch the true meaning of Logia's power. Could it be that this is the fruit awakening? Kurozumi Orochi is not a fool, and immediately roared. In this regard, Chin Luo did not say anything. The awakening of Thor may be regarded as the awakening of fruits. In the world of pirates, only awakening can fight against awakening, especially in Logia. If you don't master the power of awakening, no matter how strong your attack is, it will be easily assimilated by it. Within the same realm, Logia is always the one with the highest starting point. Fighting technique powerhouse will not armament hockey, except for restraint and seastone. No attack can hurt the elemental body. Even if those with fruit abilities have mastered some special abilities, once Logia bursts out with a power of 26 at the awakening level, it still can't hurt them in the slightest. Logia has such a bug. Your attack contains fire and frost, so even Akainu and Kuzan will find it tricky, but to me Raiden, it's meaningless. The attack is unreachable, and there is no restraint. You are left with only one brute force available, Kurozumi Orochi. Clatter. With a heavy footstep, Chin Luo raised his hand, and the black circle surrounding the circle was as dark and deep as the universe, and the black area that flashed white and blue-violet arcs from time to time suddenly expanded and spread outward. Now. It's me. Thor's prison. Kurozumi Orochi recovered from his surprise and suddenly realized. No, he's stalling for time. Even if Logia is very buggy, it still requires those with abilities to actively maintain the awakening power, constantly integrate external attacks, and protect themselves. In this state, Chin Luo didn't have the energy to do other things, otherwise he wouldn't be honest. So this nonsense just now. That's right, but it's too late. The ultimate Lei Ying, who is full of power, burst out with Chin Luo as the center. It was slowly spreading a second before Kurozumi Orochi started to move, and then it poured out violently, covering several kilometers in almost an instant. Sky and the earth changed color instantly. Kurozumi Orochi looked around in horror, the sense of crisis that kept hitting his heart. There was no gap at all. It's an insurmountable heaven for you, reptile. Chin Luo's cold and stern voice sounded from all directions, making Kurozumi Orochi's heart soar. In the deep darkness, the thunderbolts brought a faint light, which appeared one after another around the huge Yachi monster. They were all expressionless, holding the exaggerated length of the thunder spear in their hands, and threw them fiercely. Don't think about it. Unprecedented sense of crisis surged into his heart, Kurozumi Orochi let out a loud cry, and his incomparably huge body glowed with black light. He was sure that these golden yellow thunder spears would never be in vain, standing in the thundering space. Originally, it was necessary to surround Haki's defense even with his eyes open. So he has to fight. No matter what tricks Chin Luo plays, let's go together. Ding 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 ding. When 12 crisp collisions swept away in the black prison one after another, and the thunder spear pierced fiercely, but could only barely break through Kurozumi Orochi's thick armament and scales, and then got stuck in the muscles. Scaled zone is just so unreasonable. Attack only lasted for less than a second, but it brought unprecedented pressure to Kurozumi Orochi. The sound of the explosion was as dense as firecrackers, and every time the stinging pain hit, he was afraid, for fear of losing the first opportunity. But fortunately, he finally stopped it. Vivi took a breath. Kurozumi Orochi's 8 heads swayed around, looking up to search for Chin Luo's direction. He had heard of this prison of thunder, and he knew that Chin Luo used this trick to kill the fire disaster, one of the 3 disasters. However, in the latest information, the source of this trick has not been recorded, so Kurozumi Orochi is not interested in it. So understand. If the information is not in place, everything needs to be judged by oneself. But, right now, you are so stupid that I want to laugh. The faint voice sounded, and the ferocious snake head, which was missing an eyeball, froze instantly, terrified. Chin Luo was suspended in midair, like a lover, gently stroking his hands on the cold scales on the back of the head and the neck, and then endless thunder transpired between his arms, and the electric light lingered. Thunder God cut the sky. Scoff. Blood shot, blood splattered. The snake's head, which kept its shocked eyes, detached from its neck, flew into the air, and lost its support. Soon, under the constant thunder force around him, from the outside to the inside, he was ground into powder. If the opponent can't cut off a head without any defense, Chin Luo doesn't have to continue the fight. It's a shame and conspicuous. Kurozumi Orochi's remaining 7 snake heads looked at the head that disappeared in the black space incomprehensible, and whispered softly. How possible? Immediately, pain struck, and he violently swung his whip-like head and tail, creating a gust of wind around him. Chin Luo lightly avoided the messy attack, backed up a little, and narrowed his eyes. Isn't it weird? I have 8 heads. How did I avoid your sight to get to that position? Damn, is that the thunder spear just now? No need for Chin Luo's introduction. Kurozumi Orochi raised his 7 heads at the same time, and locked him in an extremely ferocious manner. He is not an idiot, he knows very well what loopholes he has left. At the speed of thunder and lightning, you can attack at the same time, but you let them hit me at intervals. In order to guard against your backhand, I naturally shifted my attention to the rhythm of the attack. Including you letting the thunder clone appear around me is also to attract my distraction. First Emperor, Chin Luo. Suddenly, Kurozumi Orochi stared at Chin Luo with murderous eyes that could not hide his fear and anger, and his body Vivi trembled. You bastard! This cunning and ever-changing fighting method, this scheming that takes into account his own influence and his thoughts. Even an ordinary person without the power of a chicken is a huge threat. And he is also one of the peak powerhouses in the sea. Clap clap clap. In response, Chin Luo applauded calmly, completely ignoring Orochi's murderous gaze. Congratulations, you got it right. After all, when you can't see your fingers at all, facing me, who is known for my scheming and calculation, your vigilance will definitely be raised to the highest level. In that case, it will make me unable to start. Speaking of which, Chin Luo, Vivi Isho. Chapter 164 Have you learned it? It's called playing hard to catch. Kurozumi Orochi's 8 heads are not decorations. Chin Luo discovered it in the simple fight just now. Although there is only one subject consciousness, his 8 heads can operate independently. The simplest change is equivalent to installing 8 radars, each head is responsible for one direction, and there is no dead angle at all. Coupled with his own strength and thick skin, if he is determined to defend, Chinluo will have a kind of dog that bites a hedgehog. Ah bah. Feels like a scholar kills a chicken and has no way to start. Through the operation just now, Chinluo successfully focused his attention on the Thunder Clone, and forced Kurozumi Orochi to unconsciously shift his focus with the Thunder Spear through the delicate calculation interval. Like the urchin who lured the sparrow into the trap with breadcrumbs in the story, the method is very effective while making people speechless. Against Kurozumi Orochi, an opponent whose IQ is not at the same level. Extremely effective. Chinluo's indifferent eyes lowered his gaze, causing Kurozumi Orochi's back to chill and his scales to stand upside down. General Kurozumi, today is your day of death. Boom. With the solemn questioning, lightning flashed in the void, and the 12 thunder clones around them dissipated in place. In an instant, the whole world became dark. You did. Woohoo. Kurozumi Orochi was startled, and just about to say something, he immediately held his breath and stood still. A palpitating sense of oppression came from all directions, making him horrified. The surrounding air has disappeared. He looked around in horror, but there was only darkness left in his line of sight. The terrifying aura of destruction surged again, forcing him to use more armament haki to defend against Lei Ying erosion. What kind of power is this? Don't you know? How did Kaido's flame calamity, Jin die? Then let you experience it. Voice fell. Kurozumi Orochi didn't even think about it. He randomly chose a direction and rushed forward. He didn't dare to stay where he was. He couldn't find Chinluo. It didn't mean Chinluo couldn't find him. This was the opponent's home court, and the venue factor was too unfavorable. Bang! While running, he spit out a spherical green poisonous smoke, which was quickly wiped out by lightning and dissipated in the air. But Kurozumi Orochi still caught the signal. There's air here, diaresis. At the moment when the poisonous smoke dissipated, a small part of the poisonous smoke made a weak irregular flow. The spherical appearance of the poisonous smoke ball exists because of this. Under his delicate control, the speed at which the poisonous smoke spreads to all directions should be exactly the same. Unless it is disturbed by the outside world. Seeing this, Chinluo Vivi narrowed his eyes. Nice beast intuition. But Kurozumi Orochi, who was rushing forward, felt the cold touch coming from the front, with a smile on his face, ready to eat. He knew, he guessed right. There is indeed air over there, maybe even an exit. As long as he rushes over, he can buy a lot of time to support him to find a way to escape or kill Ron. However, at this moment, an electric light flashed in the void, and a cold light suddenly appeared. The huge and majestic body fell forward by surprise. Kurozumi Orochi rolled and climbed all the way, and rolled out hundreds of meters away from the ground, only to stop the inertia. Feeling the familiar pain, his body trembled, and he subconsciously put the rest of his head in front of him for defense. PFF'd. The fountain of blood spurted out from the broken neck in the middle, and after dispersing, it disappeared without a trace like a splash of water that disappeared under the scorching sun. Ha! Swish! Chinluo stood in the void with a thunder spear, raised his right hand, and dragged a huge and hideous snake head. Under the erosion of thunder and lightning, the skin of this head quickly dried out, and then turned into powder, floating in the thin air. It's been done before, Kurozumi Orochi. But I really didn't expect that you would take the initiative to send it to the door. Chinluo was stunned by this operation. Inexplicably, he has become the protagonist who waits for the rabbit. In Thor's prison, where there are no fingers, except for thunder and lightning, once there is a trace of oxygen, it must be Chinluo's location. But nobody told Kurozumi Orochi this message. This is embarrassing. He just wanted to find air to breathe and regain his strength. However, he didn't know that his own behavior took the initiative to send the key to Chinluo. In this case, Chinluo, of course, would not be polite, and took off his second head. But one thing is very tricky. Perceiving the strong vitality of the calm breath ahead, Chinluo raised his eyebrows, as if he had realized something. It turns out that, your confidence comes from this. You won't die unless you chop off all 8 heads. Head turned to dust, and ordinary creatures had already died, but Kurozumi Orochi, apart from his injuries, even had a very stable breath. This means that the loss of 2 heads is not a fatal injury to him at all, and I am afraid that even the heavy injury will be marked with quotation marks. It's an incredible mythical. His only victory was the loss of these 2 poisonous mist-spitting heads, allowing Kurozumi Orochi's special attack methods to change from 4 to 3, and that's it. Diaresis, but, damn it. He didn't have time to pay attention to Chinluo. This blow was unexpected. He didn't expect Chinluo to be there, so he took the initiative to hit him. Boom. Bang. Not daring to be reckless, the remaining 6 heads were gathered together, and Kurozumi Orochi's eyes were filled with madness and despair, spraying out a series of frost and flames. Bastard Chinluo, come out and fight me in an upright manner. In Thor's prison, oxygen cannot be replenished, and if he continues, he will definitely be half dead due to lack of oxygen. Chinluo guessed right, he will die completely only if all 8 of his heads are chopped off. The unique talent of the Orochi fruit of Yaki is a special ability that makes Kaido quite a headache. Even if he was beaten to a lesser degree, as long as there is 1 head left, it is only a matter of time before he recovers. But now, this incomparably powerful talent has become a source of anxiety for him, because no one knows how Chinluo will attack next time. Death is not terrible, the feeling of waiting for death is the most maddening, Wang Zhaohao. Damn, if you didn't talk nonsense with him just now. Desperate, Kurozumi Orochi thought unwillingly. If you realize Chinluo is stalling for the first time, then you can avoid this weird and terrifying move. There is a limit to the proliferation of Thor's prison, whether it is speed or range. If he didn't make a fool of himself, Chinluo wouldn't have the chance to lock him in. Zone, who can never reach the elemental awakening, this large-scale awakening attack is the most deadly nemesis. Only awakening can fight against awakening, but there are also types of confrontation. Even Paramesha's awakening can spend time with Chinluo's Thor prison, looking for opportunities to break open the attack. Only Zone, they can confront with the other 2 factions as an exchange attack, relying on an undead physique to compete with the opponent, and does not have the ability to directly interfere with the opponent's awakening power. This move is simply the nemesis of their Zone and pure fighting technique powerhouses. Chapter 165 Ohm. There was a buzzing sound in the void, and pure black glass spheres filled with aura of destruction appeared on Chinluo's left and right hands. Under the painful gaze of Kurozumi Orochi, it sank into the eyes and mouth of the snake head, and then exploded. Clap la la. Large pieces of minced meat were scattered around, but under the effect of thunder, they were turned into powder before they landed and disappeared. 2 headless necks sagged softly on the ground, dragging out 2 stench-filled bloodstains. 2 + 2 = 4, there are 4 left. Chinluo stared at him with cold and ruthless eyes, and suddenly his footsteps lightened, his body floated back, and disappeared into the dark space. Bastard! Asshole! Kurozumi Orochi cried out in horror, with shock in his eyes. Wait a minute. Around the dark space without focus, he shouted loudly, First Emperor Chinluo, I know I did something wrong, Wano-kuni gave it to you, I shouldn't have formed an alliance with Kaido, trust me. Oh, is it? Chinluo's voice sounded from all directions, so you are ready to surrender. That's right, I don't want to die. Why should I fight with you when they are free? It's not good for me. Kurozumi Orochi breathed a sigh of relief, and Chinluo was willing to answer, proving that it was worth talking about. Now I am willing to rely on you and make you the 5th Emperor of the Sea. All the advanced equipment of Wano-kuni belongs to you, and you can help you deal with Kaido, so can you spare my life? Interesting. Chinluo appeared in front of him in a flash, his eyes narrowed. Are you sure you want to betray Kaido? You should be very afraid of him. If you really want to fight, you are not his opponent. But he's not your match either. Isn't he? Kurozumi Orochi shrunk his foreheads around his neck, and asked cautiously, the myth that he singled out the strongest was ended by you last time, and he has long since been discredited in the eyes of the world. The rules of the sea are like this, whoever is stronger makes sense. That's right, the strength of this sea is respected. Without strength, no matter how lofty the ideal is, it is still a castle in the air, and it is unrealistic. Chinluo nodded silently and said, tell me what you are going to do, let me evaluate your use value. If it doesn't reach the level you can bring to us if you kill it. Ha ha. Anything, Kurozumi Orochi swallowed and nodded. Understand, CGAC, understand. It's like this, Kaido's most elite troops are now stationed on the Wano-kuni West Blue Shore. They are all transformed people who have been completely transformed. The weapons loaded on their bodies are as good as a warship, and they are a huge threat to you. I know where they are and I can kill them myself. Kaido's secret force. Chinluo nodded silently. Yes, but not enough. Damn, greedy guy. Kurozumi Orochi cursed inwardly, but did not dare to hesitate on his face. Also, Kaido dug a basement in the mansion where he lived and hid a lot of things. He thought I didn't know, but the size of the flower capital actually happened. I can't hide things from my eyeliner, and I can help you find them. In addition, Kaido's arsenal is also. You can send someone over to receive it, and you don't have to spend money to buy it, so that the speed of your first Emperor pirates will grow faster. As the government's largest arms supplier, Kurozumi Orochi is very aware of how much the government will spend on him each quarter in previous years. Compared with the first two, this is the real bargaining chip in his mind. However, Chinluo still shook his head. After all, you still dare not stand up, right? Looking at Kurozumi Orochi's puzzled eyes, Chinluo sneered. It's all about playing sideballs, hiding behind the scenes. Why don't we find a way to lure Kaido, kill them directly, and solve the problem from the source? Then they will definitely kill me. Kurozumi Orochi shuddered and opened his mouth to refuse, but under Chinluo's icy gaze, the words came to his lips and became like this. But, you can. As long as you keep my life safe, I can cooperate. Lie. Suddenly, Chinluo shouted violently, and lightning bolts shot up at a gallop, lighting up the world. What did you use to hide the news of my appearance in Wano-kuni from those two guys? You nodded and agreed, knowing that you couldn't do it. In fact, you were still lucky, thinking that if there is a chance, you might as well fight back and cooperate with them to kill me. Right. Kurozumi Orochi's pupils shrank, and his body suddenly froze in place. How does he know what I'm thinking? Kurozumi Orochi really thinks that way, whether it's Kaido or Chinluo, as long as the situation allows, he can stand on either side. But he didn't know that Chinluo didn't believe him from the beginning. It's not a question of trust level, it's simply a question of whether or not to believe. What are you talking about? Why can't I understand? Kurozumi Orochi smiled stiffly, trying to make a final struggle. Now that neither Kaido nor the 6 sons of the Valley are here, Wano-kuni has only me and is not your opponent. What good is it for me to lie to you? No, General Kurozumi, I know you better than you think. Chinluo shook his head, the corners of his mouth curled up. You are a businessman, and what businessmen like most is to take risks. It's a preference based on the principal issue of profit points. What's the benefit of you asking me? Isn't it obvious? One is that you can survive now, the other is that you can survive in the future and continue to be your soil emperor. Kurozumi Orochi was in a cold sweat instantly. Chinluo's words were all right. So from the beginning, I didn't think that you really surrendered, I just wanted to hear your bargaining chips and get some information. But since you are starting to act stupid and violate your own businessman's principles on this principal issue, then everyone, we don't have to talk. Damn it, are you lying to me? Kurozumi Orochi instantly lost consciousness, remembering what he just said. Kaido's troops were stationed and kept secrets, even if Qin didn't really join forces with him. These two pieces of information alone are enough for Kaido to kill him. No, maybe he won't be able to wait until Kaido does it, and he'll be killed now. Despicable. Despicable. It's as clean as you say. Qin sneered and stepped back, disappearing into the darkness again. The fifth. What? Kurozumi Orochi felt that one head lost its response, and the other heads looked up, and the blue arc flashed from the void, cutting off his head again. Qin proved with facts that he never believed him from the beginning, and this kind of covert and violent attack is not something that can be done easily. Now, he only has 3 heads left. Qin indifferent voice came from all directions. It's another one. What's the matter with this kind of visual sense of dismembering a corpse? I'm not a psychopath. Why didn't you change back? Everyone, how about a quick solution? Chapter 166_. There was a buzzing sound in the void, and pure black glass spheres filled with aura of destruction appeared on Qin left and right hands. Under the painful gaze of Kurozumi Orochi, it sank into the eyes and mouth of the snake head, and then exploded. Clap la la. Large pieces of minced meat were scattered around, but under the effect of thunder, they were turned into powder before they landed and disappeared. 2 headless necks sagged softly on the ground, dragging out 2 stench-filled bloodstains. 2 + 2 = 4, there are 4 left. Qin stared at him with cold and ruthless eyes, and suddenly his footsteps lightened, his body floated back, and disappeared into the dark space. Bastard! Asshole! Kurozumi Orochi's eyes were still in shock, and he cried out in horror. Wait a minute. Around the dark space without focus, he shouted loudly, First Emperor Qin, I know what I did wrong. Wano Kuni gave it to you. I shouldn't have formed an alliance with Kaido, trust me. Oh, is it? Qin voice sounded from all directions. So you are ready to surrender. That's right. I don't want to die. Why should I fight with you when they are free? It's not good for me. Kurozumi Orochi breathed a sigh of relief, and Qin was willing to answer, proving that it was worth talking about. Now I am willing to rely on you and make you the 5th Emperor of the Sea. All the advanced equipment of Wano Kuni belongs to you, and you can help you deal with Kaido, so can you spare my life? Interesting. Qin appeared in front of him in a flash, his eyes narrowed. Are you sure you want to betray Kaido? You should be very afraid of him. If you really want to fight, you are not his opponent. But he's not your match either. Isn't he? Kurozumi Orochi shrunk his 4 heads around his neck, and asked cautiously, the myth that he singled out the strongest was ended by you last time, and he has long since been discredited in the eyes of the world. The rules of the sea are like this, whoever is stronger makes sense. That's right, the strength of this sea is respected. Without strength, no matter how lofty the ideal is, it is still a castle in the air, and it is unrealistic. Qin nodded silently and said, Tell me what you are going to do, let me evaluate your use value. If it doesn't reach the level you can bring to us if you kill it. Ha ha. Anything, Kurozumi Orochi swallowed and nodded. Understand. It's like this, Kaido's most elite troops are now stationed on the Wano Kuni West Blue Shore. They are all transformed people who have been completely transformed. The weapons loaded on their bodies are as good as a warship, and they are a huge threat to you. I know where they are and I can kill them myself. Kaido's secret force. Qin nodded silently. Yes, but not enough. Damn, greedy guy. Kurozumi Orochi cursed inwardly, but did not dare to hesitate on his face. Also, Kaido dug a basement in the mansion where he lived and hid a lot of things. He thought I didn't know, but the size of the flower capital actually happened. I can't hide things from my eyeliner, and I can help you find them. In addition, Kaido's arsenal is also. You can send someone over to receive it, and you don't have to spend money to buy it, so that the speed of your first Emperor pirates will grow faster. As the government's largest arms supplier, Kurozumi Orochi is very aware of how much the government will spend on him each quarter in previous years. Compared with the first two, this is the real bargaining chip in his mind. However, Chinluo still shook his head. After all, you still dare not stand up, right? Looking at Kurozumi Orochi's puzzled eyes, Chinluo sneered. It's all about playing sideballs, hiding behind the scenes. Why don't we find a way to lure Kaido, kill them directly, and solve the problem from the source? Then they will definitely kill me. Kurozumi Orochi shuddered and opened his mouth to refuse, but under Chinluo's icy gaze, the words came to his lips and became like this. But, you can. As long as you keep my life safe, I can cooperate. Lie. Suddenly, Chinluo shouted violently, and lightning bolts shot up at a gallop, lighting up the world. What did you use to hide the news of my appearance in Wano-kuni from those two guys? You nodded and agreed, knowing that you couldn't do it. In fact, you were still lucky, thinking that if there is a chance, you might as well fight back and cooperate with them to kill me. Right. Kurozumi Orochi's pupils shrank, and his body suddenly froze in place. How does he know what I'm thinking? Kurozumi Orochi really thinks that way, whether it's Kaido or Chinluo, as long as the situation allows, he can stand on either side. But he didn't know that Chinluo didn't believe him from the beginning. It's not a question of trust level, it's simply a question of whether or not to believe. What are you talking about? Why can't I understand? Kurozumi Orochi smiled stiffly, trying to make a final struggle. Now that neither Kaido nor the 6 sons of the Valley are here, Wano-kuni has only me and is not your opponent. What good is it for me to lie to you? No, General Kurozumi, I know you better than you think. Chinluo shook his head, the corners of his mouth curled up. You are a businessman, and what businessmen like most is to take risks. It's a preference based on the principal issue of profit points. What's the benefit of you asking me? Isn't it obvious? One is that you can survive now, the other is that you can survive in the future and continue to be your soil emperor. Kurozumi Orochi was in a cold sweat instantly. Chinluo's words were all right. So from the beginning, I didn't think that you really surrendered, I just wanted to hear your bargaining chips and get some information. But since you are starting to act stupid and violate your own businessman's principles on this principal issue, then everyone, we don't have to talk. Damn it, are you lying to me? Kurozumi Orochi instantly lost consciousness, remembering what he just said. Kaido's troops were stationed and kept secrets, even if Chinluo didn't really join forces with him. These 2 pieces of information alone are enough for Kaido to kill him. No, maybe he won't be able to wait until Kaido does it, and he'll be killed now. Despicable. Despicable, it's as clean as you say. Chinluo sneered and stepped back, disappearing into the darkness again. The 5th. What? Kurozumi Orochi felt that one head lost its response, and the other heads looked up, and the blue arc flashed from the void, cutting off his head again. Chinluo proved with facts that he never believed him from the beginning, and this kind of covert and violent attack is not something that can be done easily. Now, he only has 3 heads left. Chinluo's indifferent voice came from all directions. It's another one. What's the matter with this kind of visual sense of dismembering a corpse? I'm not a psychopath. Why didn't you change back? Everyone, how about a quick solution? 2. Chapter-167 What a shit. Kurozumi Orochi laughed in anger. He was too aggrieved in this battle, and was crushed by Chinluo's IQ from the very beginning. Now that he is at the juncture of life and death, let alone his opponent, he has not even shown up a few times, and the whole process is relaxed and comfortable. Don't be too happy, it's not over yet. Clang, clang, clang. Suddenly, the crisp sound of swords resounded through the surrounding space, and the remaining 3 heads opened their mouths, squirming out from their throats and spit out a long knife with a long, cold light, and held it in their mouths. And more than that, Kurozumi Orochi pulled out his saber with backhand from his nightgown, holding 2 of them in his hands, and wrapping 3 of them with his tail. The key 8 swords. Clap clap clap. In the sound of metal friction, 8 sharp blades were set up and aimed at the front from all angles, and an extremely powerful sword energy rose into the sky, as if to tear the entire dark space apart. Due for the Wano-kuni Admiral Army and even the existence of the Kazuki clan, Kurozumi Orochi's swordsmanship is only strong. The 2 swordsmanship is the best swordsmanship in the form of others, while in the half-beast form, he is best at the 8 swordsmanship. But, what's the use? Chinluo raised his eyebrows and thought, and said, I can't even find out where I am. What's the point of drawing your sword? In this regard, Kurozumi Orochi remained silent. He was not sure if this was Chinluo's words again. After a moment of silence, he slowly pulled the sharp knives around his body. Under Chinluo's surprised eyes, countless materialized chops erupted violently in all directions, with astonishing power. This is sea stone. Chinluo watched this scene in astonishment. In the areas where the sword chi chopped and swayed, white marks were left, like a brush, sweeping across the pitch-black drawing board. And its roots come from those blades. They are not ordinary weapons. The single-sided blade is made of sea stone. Wano-kuni who can make sea stone to such a degree. The power of 3-stage fusion can assimilate all substances, nothing more than a matter of time, but there is only one substance that is not within this range, and that is sea stone, which can interfere with the wavelength of the devil fruit. It can't interfere with the existence of thunder and lightning itself, just like iceberg made by Kuzan. Throwing a piece of sea stone on it will not melt, but it can make the awakening power of fruits densely covered in space disappear. And thunder and lightning continue to be the derivation of these forces. But Chinluo showed a charming smile and said, why are you so sure that I am a devil fruit person? The next moment, under Kurozumi Orochi's surprised eyes. At this moment, Kurozumi Orochi's 8 heads are missing 5, 8 tails are missing 2, and he stands miserably and heroically in the darkness around him. You're stalling again, Kurozumi Orochi roared suspiciously. Want to experience the thrill of an explosion? Chinluo sighed helplessly, shook his head, and then his eyes were cold, as if he was looking at an ant, cold and indifferent. Then go to hell. Pieces of pink light spots rushed out of the black prison, swaying liquid with a pungent smell along the way. In the center of the black prison with an extremely huge cross-section, they were like real stars, dotted under the dark night. But noticing what it was, Kurozumi Orochi's pupils suddenly shrank. Thor's wrath. In an instant, like an explosive rock in the world of pirates, it fell from the sky and gathered here. Chinluo put his head close to the black prison, ignited it with the scattered lightning, and took a deep breath. Kurozumi Orochi, say oh lala. Bang. Boom. Detonated in an instant, and everything was destroyed in a radius of 100 meters. The scene was shocking. The forest in situ disappeared in an instant, and the airwaves hit the flower capital far away, and even smashed the city wall directly, and leveled all the buildings on several streets with a length of more than 1,000 meters. The terrifying explosion shook the sky. Under the terrified gazes of the Wano-kuni people, the towering mountain where Odin City was located made a loud noise, and the entire mountain cracked from it, revealing a transparent gap. Chinluo floated above 10,000 meters in the sky, and the wind blew the cloak of justice behind him. Looking at the bright moon, he smoked a wazi and exhaled a cigarette ring. That's it. Yaki Orochi was resolved. The forces in Wano-kuni also disintegrated, and all subordinates were scattered like a tree falling down. When Chinluo wanted to turn and leave, a voice suddenly echoed in the ruins, breaking the silence here. Yeah, boy, you look very good. Why don't you have a fight with an old man like me? In the ruins, an old man with a bald head and a long beard and a gray beard rushed forward, and the dilapidated buildings kept crumbling everywhere he went, and finally rushed to the ruins where Chinluo was located. The huge movement instantly attracted the attention of countless people, and many people turned their eyes to see the huge bald old man, and they couldn't help showing a bit of stunned color. As that person from the legend. Someone stared at the back of the bald old man, vaguely thinking of something, and his face changed suddenly. Qinzhao. The legendary big pirate, although it has not appeared in the sea for many years, but the illustrious name of the year was imprinted in the memory of the people of that era, and the bounty was more than 500 million Bailey in that year. However, in front of Qin Luo, there is still not enough existence. Everyone's attention is focused on Qinzhao and Qin Luo. Although Qinzhao is no longer a character of this era, and his name is not as good, but for them, he is also a person who is like thunder. Damn old man, do you want to die so much? Qin Luo slowly looked at Qinzhao, his eyes were calm and indifferent. Ah, don't be too arrogant, kid. Qinzhao came directly in front of Qin Luo, touched the bald head, narrowed his eyes, and spoke to Qin Luo in a gentle tone. Qin Luo looked at Qinzhao indifferently, did not respond, and looked at it lightly. As for Qinzhao's current strength, he can't accurately judge. In his memory, Qinzhao was able to fight against Luffy in Dressrosa, but he was beaten by Lao Ji of the Don Quixote family. Fight against Luffy was the old age he last played, and today's Qinzhao is far from that time, and the beard has not even become completely white, but gray-white. Peak state is at least the strongest level among Shichibukai. As for how much strength he has now after being bald by Garp, it is unknown. He, it's kinda hockey. Qinzhao Vivi grinned, the drooping gray-white beard, suddenly unaffected by gravity, in an inexplicable form, began to float upwards, those squinting eyes slowly opened, and a terrifying momentum gradually emerged from his body rose up. He stared at Qin Luo, his eyes flashed fiercely, and his tone suddenly became cold, revealing murderous intent and suppressed anger undisguised, and said, "However, if you dare to provoke the old times, you will have to pay a price." Chapter 168 The next instant, Qinzhao's huge arm clenched his fist, and the jet-black armament hockey was attached to his fist, and he suddenly bombarded Qin Luo. At the same time, a shocking conqueror hockey burst out from Qinzhao's body, surging in all directions. Boom! Qin Luo was not afraid, his expression remained unchanged, his right hand clenched his fist, and slammed it against Qinzhao's fist. The two disproportionately sized fists collided in the air, and a roar instantly rang out, which shook the street between them inch by inch. Spread like a spider web. The aftermath wavered. Qin Luo stood on the spot and did not step back, the ground under his feet cracked inch by inch, and Qinzhao also kept his fist-swinging posture, and the ground under him also shattered into pieces. The people watching from a distance had fallen silently at this time, all of them were shocked by the conqueror of Qinzhao, but the conqueror of Qinzhao was not strong. There were still many people still standing, but most of them were on their foreheads a bit of cold sweat. "What's the matter, you all fell down?" Some people looked at the inexplicable foaming at the mouth and fainted to the end, and they couldn't help showing a bit of fear of the unknown, and their faces were full of panic. "It's hockey of conqueror," the person with extraordinary knowledge said with awe-inspiring eyes, but this is also a reasonable thing. The leader Qinzhao was a big man with a reward of more than 500 million. 26.580 million Bailey. This is the bounty for Qinzhao, who was at his peak and could compete with Garp. Although Qinzhao was later beaten by Garp, who used the mountain as a sandbag to practice boxing and leveled 8 mountains, his strength is unquestionable. Yahaha, not bad. Junior, who did your hockey learn from? Looking at Qin Luo who was firmly resisting his own punch, Qinzhao let out a heck and stared at Qin Luo. His gray beard seemed to be blown by the strong wind and kept floating upwards. The conqueror hockey that erupted gradually disappeared. Who knows? Qin Luo slowly retracted his fist and responded calmly. "Ah, are you self-awakening?" Qinzhao suddenly shouted angrily, his palms slammed together in front of him, his entire upper body suddenly turned over, his bald head slammed a headbutt at Qin Luo, and slammed down viciously. 8 Chong Fist, Wu Tu. Qin Luo didn't step back, he folded the 5 fingers of his right hand, and suddenly clenched it into a fist, the twisting force wrapped around the fist, and slammed it against Qinzhao's head. Qin Zhao was beaten bald by Garp. Although he lost this weapon, his armament hockey will not be weakened by it. Boom! Qin Luo's fist collided with Qin Zhao's headbutt, and there was another roar that shook the heavens and the earth. Almost in an instant, the crumbling ground beneath Qin Luo's feet shattered inch by inch, and the dilapidated buildings around could not withstand the aftermath of the twisting force, and there were traces of cracks. As the roaring sound echoed, Qin Luo's arm was shaking constantly, and Qin Zhao's head and neck were shaking constantly. Boom! After a stalemate for almost 2 seconds, the twisting power in Qin Luo's body continued to explode. With his low voice, he suddenly defeated the impact of Qin Zhao's 8 punches, and bombarded Qin Zhao's head, knocking his entire body. People were beaten and flew out. Boom! Boom! Qin Zhao, who flew upside down, smashed 2 buildings in a row and smashed into a rubble, and then stopped. Chief Qin Zhao was knocked out. This is the strength of the 5 emperors. Qin Luo isn't even the legendary character no longer his opponent. Many people watched this scene from a distance and couldn't help but shake their hearts. However, just as the group of people trembled, the ruins suddenly squeaked, and the figure of the leader Qin Zhao rushed out from it. Yeah, the power of the moves is good, but if you want to beat me, you're still a long way off. Whoosh! Expression didn't change, and he didn't talk nonsense. He jumped up and rushed up. Armament hockey was attached to his left arm and right hand. With the water, Garp punched Qin Zhao's head bald, but it was only bald. At most, the hardness was reduced a little, but Qin Zhao's fighting ability was still very strong. Boom! 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 The face of Qin Luo's attack. Qin Zhao was not afraid. Fully inspired observation hockey clearly captured all Qin Luo's movements, punched punch after punch, and challenged Rhodes. The earth continued to tremble and roar, and in an instant, the two of them slammed dozens of punches at each other. The huge sound continued to sway like thunder, causing everyone who was watching from afar to cover their ears in horror, showing a difficult expression. It was this sound that made their eardrums hum constantly, unbearable. Boom! Boom! With the passage of time, Qin Zhao, who could have been on an equal footing with Qin Luo, began to sweat stains on his forehead, and his body moved back little by little under heavy pressure, leaving 2 plow-like marks on the ground. Qin Luo's fists kept breaking open his 8 punches, acting on his fists. Although his armament hockey was extremely tyrannical and could resist, it would still be partially penetrated in this continuous attack. Even if it was only a small part, the accumulation continued to make his arm gradually go numb. Damn, Junior! Feeling the numbness of his arms, Qin Zhao roared. His arms slammed open, and the jet-black armament hockey was attached to his head for a moment, and he slammed into Qin Luo. Boom! Qin Luo's fist collided with Qin Zhao's head again. This time, Qin Zhao stepped on the ground, while Qin Luo was in the air. After a few seconds of stalemate, Qin Zhao's body slammed, staggered back, and finally sat on his buttocks. He fell to the ground, and Qin Luo also turned over and stepped back. Qin Zhao touched his head, and suddenly thought of the tragedy of being beaten bald by Garp back then, and his face instantly showed a ferocious look. Ah! He roared angrily. The whole person slammed towards Qin Luo, and his head was hammered fiercely. Qin Luo hit him with a punch and collided with Qin Zhao again. With a violent roar, Qin Zhao flew out again and smashed several buildings, but he was still uninjured. Qin Luo looked at this scene expressionlessly. After taking off his remaining strength, he stepped on his feet, and the whole person suddenly rushed out. He came to the front of Qin Zhao, and struck down with his fists again, as if he regarded Qin Zhao as a human figure. Sandbags! Boom! 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 Qin Luo and Qin Zhao fought together again, and his figure kept flickering in the field. In terms of speed, he was much faster than Qin Zhao, and he always took the initiative to attack. Qin Zhao's body is huge, but observation hockey is extremely strong. While capturing Qin Luo's movements, he constantly defends and counterattacks, constantly fighting with Qin Luo. The arrogant junior. The accumulating distortion effect made Qinzhao extremely uncomfortable. He couldn't help roaring. The whole person rose into the air, armament hockey on his head was fully stimulated, and he fell violently towards Qin Luo. The profound truth of 8 Chong Fist. No cone dragon, no cone nail. Qin Luo's expression didn't change. Facing Qinzhao's full-strength blow, he directly threw his fist to meet him. Qinzhao's head, his fists are very different in size. They are slender arms in comparison, and it looks like they will be directly broken by Qinzhao's headbutt. But the moment when the two sides collided, after an earth-shattering roar, Qinzhao was blasted by Qin Luo and flew upside down. He actually smashed 3 dilapidated buildings in a row and flew farther away. These two battles, although Qin Luo's physical strength was very serious, he was still able to fight against Qinzhao with ease. His strength is already 1 point stronger than Qinzhao. Qinzhao relies on armament hockey's strong defense and stamina to fight against him. Now, as the battle continues, he is stronger, and the battle has gradually become stronger. The balance of the bucket is tilted. Cough, cough. Qinzhao, who got up from the ruins, only felt a tingling in his head. He also noticed that Qin Luo's strength seemed to have increased a little, and his brows were furrowed. However, as an existence with Conqueror hockey, and facing a junior, he could not have any intention of retreating. After roaring, he rushed to Qin Luo again. Boom, boom, boom. War broke out again, but this time, Qinzhao was directly at a disadvantage. Originally, he could collide with Qin Luo for dozens or hundreds of punches, and then interact with the headbutt, but now he fights dozens of punches. A numbness to the arm. That Qinzhao had already lost a bit, Qin Luo's eyes flickered slightly. Whoosh, whoosh. It's time to end. Qin Luo took a deep breath, his eyes flashed coldly, and he no longer suppressed his strength. His right hand clenched his fist with the 5 fingers, the perfect combination of armament hockey, and threw a punch at Qinzhao. Qinzhao roared and tried his best to stimulate armament hockey. He used his headbutt to confront Qin Luo, but after only a second of support, the whole person was slammed to the ground, and a huge human figure was smashed out of the ground. Pothole. Whoosh. Qin Luo fell from the sky and rushed directly into the pothole. Boom, boom, boom. Several continuous roars came from the depths of the earth, echoing incomparably dull, and it caused the earth to vibrate continuously, making many people unsteady. And when the roaring sound finally stopped and the vibrations stabilized, a figure jumped out of the pothole gently, and there seemed to be a little blood on his fist. Qin Luo calmly flicked his wrist, and the blood was silently peeled from his fingers, restoring the white and ordinary palm. In the pit, there is no more life. The whole place was silent. The era of the great pirates. A certain month. The 5 Emperor Qin Luo went to Wanokuni to kill Orochi and the leader Qinzhao. The news spread, and the sea shook. Chapter 169 _ Captain, where are we going next? Perona asked, looking at Qin Luo with respect. Go find someone, nice person. Qin Luo heard the words and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. That person is Fujitora Isho. Of course. Today's Fujitora has not yet joined Marine, nor has the code name, Fujitora. His name is Isho, and there is no doubt how strong his strength is. Shiryu of Rain, which is now almost the same as Admiral, may not be able to beat Fujitora. And Fujitora is a character with a sense of justice. Qin Luo doesn't like to do some things for justice, but these things can be done by Fujitora. A crew with the strength of Marine Admiral, full of sense of justice, not a big eater, will not get lost, and will not see beautiful women with nosebleeds. Such a crew member is undoubtedly the most suitable at present. The first half of the Great Route. When Qin Luo said the location, Nami took out the chart and determined the location. The place where Fujitora appeared was not in the New World, but in the first half of the Great Route, or even in a relatively advanced position in the first half, which was a hemisphere away from them. Want to go? After Nami looked at the chart, she asked Chinluo. Chinluo thought for a while before making a decision. Of course. After giving the order, Chinluo left the hall. Looks like the captain cares a lot about that issue. Perona is alert. Although Chinluo did not reveal the complete information about Fujitora, how could he infer that the issue, who was not well known and had never heard of, possessed extraordinary combat power? Maybe, Nami replied lightly. However, if you can be valued by the captain, and even take a trip in person, you must still have the combat power of the 3 disaster generals. Otherwise, with the current status of the master, you don't need to care so much. Kaya sat there with her legs crossed, and said with a slight pouting, let's run with so many people, the face is still quite big, I hope to have the ability to fit this face. Then I'd like to meet you when I get there. With that, Perona left the hall. The first half of the Great Route. An island. In a noodle shop, a blind man wearing a purple cloak and a black belt is sitting on a wooden bench and eating noodles, with a wooden walking stick beside him and his feet on wooden sandals. He doesn't look sloppy, but he doesn't bright and unremarkable. Fujitora Isho, who will participate in the world recruitment and be promoted to admiral in a few years without changing the historical trajectory. Today is the 17th year in September of the Great Pirate Era, and it is very close to the 18th year of the Great Pirate Era. Luffy went to sea in the 22 years of the Great Pirate Era, and Ace went to sea in the 19th year. Check out, diaresis. After Fujitora ate all the noodles, only the bottom of the bowl was left in the noodle soup. Then he stood up, and slowly took out a banknote from his pocket. After groping twice, after judging the face value of the banknote, he put the banknote in. Handed it to the owner of the noodle shop. The boss smiled and gave Fujitora change, handed it to Fujitora, and said, "Come on, take it and walk slowly." Fujitora has been eating noodles with him for 10 days, and he is a frequent visitor in a short period of time. Fujitora was honest, put the change in his pocket, and touched the ground with a wooden stick, walked out of the noodle shop slowly, and walked slowly along the side of the street. However, just when he walked into a somewhat remote and dark street, a dozen people suddenly came out from all directions and surrounded him in the middle. Fujitora's expression didn't change, and he continued to walk forward calmly. The wooden stick touched the ground little by little, and finally touched a person's foot. He touched the back of his head and said apologetically, "I am very sorry, the old man is blind, can you give it a little?" "Of course you can." The man opened his mouth lightly, but with a sinister smile on his face, stepped aside and stumbled over Fujitora's leg. However, Fujitora walked normally, but as if seeing it, it just crossed over. The man was slightly surprised, but randomly snorted Isho, suddenly reached out and grabbed Fujitora's shoulders, and hung on Fujitora's body like a hook, saying, "I said, if I remember correctly, you won a lot at the casino this month, right? You're really lucky." Although Fujitora did not go to the casino every day, he went to the casino more than a dozen times in more than a month, and although he did not win a lot every time, he always left after winning a fixed part, but because of the many times, it's normal to be watched. "Yeah, it's been really good luck during this time." Fujitora stroked the back of his head and smiled, not angry at the other person's rude behavior. More than a dozen people with fierce faces next to him all looked at Isho when they saw it, and looked at Fujitora with a bit of fire in their eyes. Usually they don't just find someone to start with, and they naturally have to ask carefully before starting. And after some inquiries, their eyes were locked on Fujitora. In their eyes, Fujitora, a blind man who can't see, has no influence, and a loner guy is simply a fat sheep that has nothing to say. Hey, yeah. The man who was hanging around Fujitora's shoulders slowly let go of his arm, and his other hand suddenly grabbed Fujitora's collar and said, "So, our luck is also very good. The eyes are out of sight, and it would be miserable if the leg were to break again, so to avoid this, how about paying a little Bailey in exchange for your leg?" The person next to him grinned Isho and pulled out a saber with a clang, deliberately letting Fujitora hear the sound. Fujitora's expression didn't change, but his head sank slightly. It's also a blessing to not look at things. There are too many filthy and despicable people in this world. Almost in an instant, a strange force swayed away, and the young man holding his collar suddenly changed his face. He only felt that a force of gravity was suddenly pressing on him. The whole person seemed to be carrying a heavy mountain, and his bones were cracking. Clicking. Inexplicable, he pulled Fujitora's collar hard, but he still couldn't resist the force. There were cracks on the ground under his feet. The whole person was crushed to the ground, blood spilled from his mouth, and he even struggled. Not. The dozen or so people next to him didn't feel anything unusual. When they noticed that their partner fell, they thought he was teasing Fujitora. It was not until they found that blood was spilling from the other party's mouth that they realized that something was wrong. Diaresis, hello. So, what's the matter with you? You're overacting. Under the shock of a group of people, their faces finally changed, and they pulled out their weapons. What did you do? Someone looked at Fujitora vigilantly, and asked Fujitora sternly. Fujitora didn't answer, but leaned on a wooden stick, touched the ground with it, walked forward, and stepped over the fallen murderer. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the people next to him changed, and someone's eyes flashed fiercely. The musket aimed at Fujitora's head and shot violently. Boom! A bullet burst out, hitting Fujitora's head. But what is shocking is that Wang Zhaozhao, this bullet suddenly slowed down when it reached a 1-foot area around Fujitora, as if it had endured some terrifying force, and could no longer go. Fell to the ground. Fujitora stopped. He slowly picked up the stick, holding one end of the stick. What the hell is going on here? What did that guy do? Seeing that the bullet was actually fixed and then dropped, everyone showed a shocked expression, and sweat dripped from their foreheads. And just when their hearts were shaking and they didn't know whether they should continue to strike, clear footsteps suddenly came from a distance. Tread, tread, tread. This is the sound of clogs stepping on the stone path. At the end of the street, a figure walked over slowly, wrapped in a black cloak and wearing wooden sandals. His appearance was not sloppy, but he was not handsome. The brain is a good thing. Qin Luo walked over slowly, glanced flatly at the murderer who was crushed to the ground, and the dozen or so people around with Hegan fire gun and swords, and said, "But you will be gone soon." Chapter 170 Hearing Qin Luo's words, the eyes of more than 10 people present shifted their gazes, and they all had a bit of cold sweat on their foreheads. When they saw Qin Luo's appearance, one of them changed dramatically. You was a look of horror on his face, and even when Fujitora stopped the bullet, he didn't show such an expression. Not only was the cold sweat dripping from his forehead, but his entire back was shivering with chills. The people next to them reacted a beat slower, but after they reacted, their faces changed drastically, and they all took a breath of cold air, only to feel that their legs and feet became weak for a while. Qin Luo. Someone said the name with a trembling voice, and the whole person sat on the ground. Great Root. 5th Emperor. Fujitora paused for a while, ignoring the dozen or so murderers around him, but raised his head towards Qin Luo's direction, opening a pair of eyes with only the whites of his eyes but no pupils. Get to know me, Qin Luo. Qin Luo took another 2 steps forward, stopped 3 meters away from Fujitora, and gave Fujitora a faint isho. I encountered some nasty things, which made your excellency laugh. Fujitora put down the wooden stick slowly, facing Qin Luo's kind isho. Qin Luo smiled lightly and said, "In this world, how can you avoid all the filth and filth? Even if you close your eyes, you will always encounter it. It is very difficult to stay out of it." Listen to the conversation between Qin Luo and Fujitora. The more than 10 people next to them did not relax because the two ignored them. Instead, the panic in their hearts became stronger and stronger. That blind man could actually talk to Qin Luo. It's like a ghost, isn't it just an ordinary blind man? A group of people all froze in place. Some people had the idea of running away, but their legs seemed to be filled with lead. It was difficult to lift them. The whole person seemed to have become a clay plastic wooden tire. He could only watch Chinluo and Fujitora talking to the side. Ah! Hearing Chinluo's words, Fujitora sighed. Indeed, as Chinluo said, in this era, it is unavoidable to avoid it. This is the era of the great pirates, a chaotic era in which countless pirates and villains are rampant. Only within a certain range. The world has collapsed. But acting like your excellency will only make the chaos worse. Fujitora spoke slowly. He knew that Chinluo was at sea. He is also very clear about what he has done along the way. He is not clumsy. Contrary to his simple and honest appearance, everything in his heart is transparent. Chinluo would appear here, and he took the initiative to find him. He didn't think it was a coincidence, because Chinluo's current status represented something too heavy. If it wasn't a coincidence, he could generally guess what Chinluo wanted to do. The world government, is it God? Chinluo gently did not answer Fujitora's words, but asked a question instead. Fujitora's hand holding the wooden staff tightened slightly. Chinluo looked at Fujitora and said slowly, "They are not gods, they are just rulers of the world, that's all. The world, as you can see, is sick." Chinluo's hand stretched out from the cloak, spread it out gently, and said, "Using the method of the world government, applying medicine little by little, the condition will only get worse and worse. If you want to cure it, you can only move. Surgery is the only way to do a major operation to remove all the lesions from the root cause." Quote. Fujitora understood Chinluo's meaning. Chinluo's thoughts were also shaken in his heart. The existence of the government is the stability and order of the world itself. Your Excellency never thought about how much blood will be shed once this operation is performed. Surgery is not a one-step process. Chinluo said lightly, "There is still a lot of preparatory work to do, such as taking medicine in the early stage, anesthesia and disinfection, and then it will be the turn of the knife." Hearing Chinluo's words, Fujitora was silent for a while. As Chinluo said, he can't turn a blind eye to everything in this world. He has ambitions and beliefs, and he alone cannot change the world, so he needs to choose a path. Pirates are impossible, because pirates are the source of chaos, and apart from pirates, there are only two options left, the Revolutionary Army and the world government. The Revolutionary Army is trying to overthrow the world government, but their actions start with spreading ideas and instigating rebellion. True to their name, they are launching a revolution that will affect the whole world. There is no doubt that the revolution requires bloodshed and sacrifice. Under the normal historical process, Fujitora finally chose the government and marine among the hesitations of the Revolutionary Army and the government. And now, there was one more choice in front of him, and that was the alternative First Emperor Pirates. Although it is named as a pirate, it aims to hunt and kill pirates. It does not rob civilians, nor does it wantonly massacre, but only exposes the darkness of the world. He also understood Chinluo's previous statement. He had already directly told him that the next purpose of the First Emperor Pirates was to eradicate the four emperors. Then swing the knife to the world government and rebuild a new order. The current Chinluo is not a nobody, but the five emperors who rule the sea. With such an identity, he can say so much to such a nobody, and his attention to him is also very clearly expressed. Fujitora is a man with a clear mind and arrogance. Marine from now on the one hand, he has not made a choice, on the other hand, he does not like to start as a pawn, so he will directly show his shocking strength in the recruitment of the world, so that the world government can be promoted exceptionally, one step to become Marine Admiral. Quote. During the communication between Chinluo and Fujitora, more than a dozen murderers next to them were sweating profusely, not daring to move, let alone say a word. There are also people with good brains among them, who can guess something based on Chinluo's CGAC words, but they don't dare to think about it. Some people want to cry. After finally locking on a fat sheep and intending to make some money to spend, how could he be involved in the vortex of the five emperors? However, are you ready to help with the preparations for this operation? Chinluo looked at Fujitora and issued an invitation. Fujitora was silent for a few seconds, and finally declined. I'm just a nameless person who doesn't see anything. I really don't deserve your respect. Chinluo's expression remained unchanged. Had expected Fujitora's reaction, and said calmly, I trust my vision, besides. Speaking of which. He paused for a moment, twisted his voice, and sent a sentence to Fujitora's ear. Really? Fujitora's expression changed. Chinluo, Vivi Isho, did not respond, just looked at Fujitora. Fujitora's face became cloudy for a while, and the hand holding the wooden staff became a lot tighter, and he didn't speak for a long time. That's it. Chinluo looked at the silent Fujitora, waited quietly for a while, and said, why don't we take a gamble, what do you think? Fujitora's face was gloomy, and he didn't know how many thoughts were surging in his heart. In the end, he wiped out all the distracting thoughts and nodded seriously at Chinluo. You should be honored. Chinluo touched his chin, thought for a moment, and said. How do you like to gamble? Since it's your invitation, it's up to you to decide how to gamble freely. Fujitora responded. Chinluo reached out and felt in his pocket, and finally found a coin. He stared at the coin and said, I rarely play, and I don't know anything about complicated things. Why don't you choose the simplest one? What do you want? How's it going? Fujitora nodded and said, it couldn't be more appropriate. Chinluo smiled, put the coin between his fingers, made a pop-up shape, and said, one side of the word, one side of the flower, which side do you bet on? Word. Fujitora didn't think much of it. Chinluo said softly, then I am the flower. Ding. The moment the words fell, he flicked his thumb on the middle of his index finger, and the coin spun into the sky in an instant. After reaching the highest point, it fell to the ground below. Chinluo and Fujitora's observation hockey captured the movement of coins at the same time. It looks like a simple bet, but in the hands of the two of them, it can't be that simple, because the two of them already know the answer the moment it pops up. Since it was Chinluo's coin, it must be controlling the falling of yuan. Fujitora's expression didn't change. He held a wooden stick in his hand, and suddenly shot, a strange force suddenly aroused, and instantly enveloped the coin, causing the coin's movement trajectory to change. Chinluo's expression didn't change. He flicked his fingers, and a wisp of finger wind stirred up and bounced on the coin, and the speed of the falling coin's rotation increased instantly. Fujitora's eyes with only the whites of his eyes opened slightly, and he slowly brought the wooden stick in front of him. ZZ. Chinluo's eyes flickered, the power was surging, and the twisted gravity stimulated, destroying the gravity released by Fujitora, causing the coin to fall abruptly and bounce back to the sky. The two, one releasing the gravity and the other releasing the conqueror, collided with each other on this street. Click, click. I don't know when it started. The ground between Chinluo and Fujitora began to shatter, at a speed visible to the naked eye, like a spider web, spreading inch by inch in all directions. This is. Under the confrontation, Chinluo and Fujitora's aura was naturally revealed, and they collided in the void, causing more than a dozen murderers nearby to stand up. Looking at the cracked ground inch by inch, everyone jumped violently in their hearts, revealing the color of fear, even if the cracking of the ground did not spread fast, and it seemed that there was no huge collision, but they felt it in their hearts. A creepy horror. Once involved in it, it will be shattered to pieces. Chapter 171 Escape. Run away. Someone finally reacted. Under the crisis of life and death, they broke free from the oppression brought by Chinluo, forcibly moved their legs, and fled far away. However, just as they all fled, Chinluo in the field flicked his fingers flat. While fighting against Fujitora's gravity, he shot out a sword energy. The sword energy swept across, like the compression impact of the sound wave, causing the air on the entire street to have spring-like twisted traces. Wherever they went, the bodies of those murderers were all twisted and squeezed together, even screaming. None were issued. The flesh and bones were continuously squeezed, compressed together, and finally turned into a tight and heavy blood-colored ball that rolled into the distance along the street and disappeared, at the end of the field of vision. Boom! After doing all this, Chinluo's strength was stimulated, and it collided violently with Fujitora's gravity. His body swayed, but he didn't move at all, while Fujitora was holding a wooden stick and his clogs were sliding continuously on the ground. After moving nearly 2 meters, it stopped. The coin finally fell from the sky and landed on the ground. After rolling twice, it stopped. The upward side was inscribed with lifelike petals. Fujitora slowly straightened up. Chinluo stood there, calmly looking at Fujitora and Vivi Isho. Assignment. Fujitora walked towards Chinluo, and while passing Chinluo, he paused for a moment, and said, "In the future, I will be able to manage my face." No doubt. Chinluo is stronger than him in terms of strength. Strength is stronger than him, the will shakes him, and the statement makes him agree. Fujitora has no reason to refuse, not to mention that this last bet is indeed lost. Fold tube. Chinluo gently Isho. Coast. The ship of the first Emperor Pirates is docked here. Chinluo and Fujitora came from a distance, all the way to the shore. Perona and others gathered on the deck early, and their eyes were focused on Fujitora. The aura exuded by the strong is obviously different from that of ordinary people. Perona can roughly judge that Fujitora has considerable strength, but to what extent, he is not sure. It seems to have some skill. After all, it's the captain's fancy. Nami shrugged. The person Chinluo liked could not be too bad. Walking along the gangway to the deck, Chinluo said with a smile. Introduction. On the deck, Chinluo pointed at Fujitora Vivi Isho and said, "Nami, Perona, Kaya." After speaking, Chinluo looked at Perona and the others and briefly introduced the name of Fujitora. Perona's attitude towards Fujitora is not salty or indifferent, while Nami is observing Fujitora, trying to judge the specific strength of Fujitora. Kaya has a smile on her face, gentle and elegant. "I've admired your great names for a long time." After Chinluo's introduction, Fujitora pointed at Isho, who was slightly honest with the 3 daughters, with a harmless smile, and said, "I am deeply ashamed to be so valued by Mr. Chinluo in the next unnamed generation, please ask more in the future." "Wait. Too modest." Nami said to Fujitora, "To be so valued by the captain, she must have extraordinary skills. However, since we are on the same boat, we should get to know each other more. I wonder what your abilities are." "Ha ha, the little trick of carving insects is not enough to talk about." Fujitora touched the back of his head, Hihi Isho, like a harmless middle-aged uncle. Ever since she was given the power of a female ghost swordsman, she has always been wearing a sword around her waist. She looked at Fujitora and said, "I have nothing to do, but my hands are itchy, how about a discussion?" Although Fujitora came later, his position on the ship could not have been suspended in midair, and after all, he had to fall where he should. On this ship, in addition to the order of boarding, the distinction of status must be determined by strength, and even the strength of strength is more decisive than the order of boarding. After all, this is a world where the weak eat the strong. Chinluo did not stop him. On this ship, it is normal to delineate status by strength or weakness. Faced with Perona's outspoken challenge, Fujitora paused for a moment and said slowly, "Since your excellency has yaxing, you should let your excellency have fun. This is not the place to start, let's start the boat first." Perona grinned slightly, but didn't move. The ship quickly set sail, left the island, and came to a flat sea. Perona looked at the place, and after a slight glint in her eyes, she jumped to the sea. His body was instantly covered by a scarlet sword energy, and the moment he stepped on the sea, the scarlet force swept the surrounding sea, causing the sea to sweep away in all directions. In fact, during this time, Perona was no longer as weak as he used to be. Condensing the scarlet power on the sword chi is a long-range attack method. In fact, the scarlet power contained in the sword chi is not strong. But when the female ghost swordsman and Perona are fully stimulated to the extreme, her body and her blade will have extreme sword energy, and when they engage in close combat with the enemy will be greatly affected. Imagine two swordsmen fighting in close combat. As the blades collide continuously, one person's blade suddenly condenses an explosive scarlet force, and the impact is obviously severe. Great. Standing on the edge of the deck, Fujitora lowered her head and noticed that the sea surface was surging into a big wave. She couldn't help but slowly opened her mouth, and then it also fell to the water surface below and levitated. Perona said nothing, and drew her sword. Offended. Compared to Perona's surging sword energy, Fujitora's expression was always very calm. Without any momentum showing, he slowly opened his mouth, leaned forward, and held the handle of the wooden staff. The stick sword was suddenly pulled out, and with a wave toward the sky, a strange force suddenly shot out, suddenly traversed the sky, and disappeared into the blue sky. Nami and Kaya were also on the other side, staring at Fujitora. Noticing Fujitora's movements, they couldn't help but look up at the sky, revealing a bit of a strange color. They could sense that Fujitora had thrown some kind of power into the sky, but they didn't know what Fujitora's purpose was. Perona also looked up at the sky, and there was a hint of doubt in her eyes. But soon, the doubt in her eyes turned into surprise. I saw that above the blue sky, a little red spark suddenly appeared, breaking through the sky from an unknown distance, and falling toward the field. Meteorite. Perona's complexion changed. Nami and Kaya both showed a hint of shock. Needless to say, the power of this meteorite, but it is too much of a joke to be able to pull down a meteorite from the unknown sky. Scarlet Sword. Looking at the falling meteorite, Perona took a deep breath, not daring to be careless. The female ghost swordsman's ability was stimulated, and she suddenly slashed out. The falling meteorite was split in half from the center under Perona's sword, while the burning flames diminished and were eroded and covered by scarlet power. But the fall of the meteorite that was cut in half has not diminished, and it is still smashing down like a destructive force, shattering the power of scarlet. Sword net. Perona's eyes were cold, and he slashed out several swords again. The sword energy intertwined and turned into a big net, tearing the meteorite into countless pieces. At the same time, Fujitora, who was opposite him, also swung out a sword, and a surging pressure slammed into the other half of the meteorite. After a stalemate for a second, the half of the meteorite was blown apart. Boom! The shattered meteorite finally fell to the ice surface, causing a violent roar that blasted away the surrounding sea. I saw Perona suspended in the air, looking at Fujitora solemnly, and Fujitora was also suspended in the air. I underestimate you. Perona spoke slowly and said, even if there are people with healthy eyes, few can have the strength of you. 2. Chapter 172 The little trick of carving insects is not worth mentioning, and it will make your excellency laugh. Fujitora's indifferent issue, she also judged Perona's general strength range. Of course, to determine Perona's strength, just one move to test is not enough. Perona also only knew that Fujitora was strong, but she didn't know how strong. After she sank her face a little, she suddenly rushed towards Fujitora. Female ghost sword. Extremely cold ice blade. The extremely cold sword containing -150 degrees slashed towards Fujitora. Fujitora's expression didn't change, and he waved the sword in his hand. Gravity condensed on the blade and released it towards Perona, who was rushing towards him. Gravity knife. Boom. Compared with the tentative move just now, this move is a pure frontal attack. Perona's move is full of the power of extreme cold, and the power to freeze everything. Fujitora is pure gravity condensed together, forming a high-intensity weight, making the air vaguely twisted. Click, click. The broken ice surface below shattered again in the aftermath. The terrifying aftermath swayed in the sky and swept in all directions. This time, Chinluo did not sit back and watch, but pressed his hand in the air to block the aftermath that swept over. When the aftermath dissipated, the figures of Fujitora and Perona were revealed, and Fujitora's face was calm. Regardless of the blade, the clothes were not stained with the slightest frost, nor were there any damage. In front of him, Perona had wrinkles on her clothes, which was obviously inferior. Quote. Perona stared at Fujitora. Fujitora's strength can reach this level, which is beyond her expectations. If she integrates the female ghost swordsman to a higher degree, she will be able to compete with Fujitora. Now, if it is a life and death struggle, his chance of winning is less than 40%, at most only 30%. That's it for now. Chinluo stood on the deck and looked at Perona and Fujitora in the sky. Amazing. Nami muttered. Perona glanced at Fujitora, snorted softly, and fell to the deck below. Naturally, he would not be very happy that Fujitora was stronger than her. Fujitora's attitude was calm. He put the staff knife into the wooden staff, and then fell back to the deck. Let's set sail, let's go back to the New World. Chinluo spoke calmly, glanced at Fujitora at the same time, then left the deck and walked into the cabin at the rear. Fujitora understood, the stick in his hand lightly resting on the deck. Gravity stimulated, and the ship that was frozen on the ice suddenly roared, broke free from the broken ice, came into the air, and flew into the distance under the control of Fujitora. The news about the appearance of the first Emperor pirates in the first half of the Great Route was also learned by the world government and Marine, but this time both Marine and the world government remained silent, just taking precautions and superficial work that may be dispatched at any time. A 5-emperor pirate group wandering in the sea is too expensive to deal with, and Chinluo's ability is extremely special. In the face of 4 top fighting forces, he can retreat calmly. I am afraid that the most difficult pirate group to destroy will belong to the group. The first Emperor pirates. From the New World to the first half, and then back to the New World. Again and again, it took nearly a month. During this month, the New World was calm, and the 4 emperors stayed in their respective territories, and there was no conflict or even friction between them. But everyone knows that this calm situation is just a scene on the sea, and there are already dark tides in the deep seabed. The first emperor pirates, who have the title of the 5th emperor, have so far not had their own territory. A 5 emperor with power but no territory is weird. The behavior of the first emperor pirates along the way is obviously completely irrelevant to the so-called security of oneself, which means that the so-called calm in the past few months is just brewing a huge storm that will sweep the entire sea. And just when this world gave people a feeling that the storm was about to come, the Big Mom pirate group, one of the 5 emperors, issued an invitation that caused many people a headache. 4 emperors Big Mom, Charlotte Linlin, St. Party. There are countless scary things in the New World. In addition to the far more bizarre and bad weather than the first half, there are also the 4 emperors that must not be provoked, Kaido of the Beasts, and the invitation that must not be refused, Big Mom, St. Party. Dared to ignore Big Mom, St. Party. Those who once received invitations but ignored them are now buried in history, and few people even remember their names. The Tea Party, has it started again? The leader of a certain underground force rubbed his eyebrows with a headache. Receiving the invitation letter, you must go, and if you leave, you must bring the treasure box that Big Mom likes, and the gift in the treasure box is a very troublesome thing. Painful again. Clang. 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 On the Cake Island of Nations, as the bell rang at 9 o'clock in the morning, all the people invited by Charlotte to participate in the tea party here landed one after another. Let's start now, Tilda. Let's start now, Tilda. Mom's tea party will start soon, Tilda. The forest around Cake Island, Homies, who was brought to life by BIGMOM, sang happily, and the song spread all over the island, and the residents of the town cheered to welcome the tea ceremony. The Pig Express, which was carrying the guests, came in a hurry. It's still too late. It shouldn't be late, Lin Camellia Party. Well, but we have to hurry up. Under the amazed eyes of the residents of the town, the invited guests made a grand appearance. They are the King of Usury, God of Fortune, Dufeld. Open black lens bracket Queen of the Pleasure District close black lens bracket Stussy and the mysterious visitor Mammon. Open black lens bracket Big Hand Undertaker close black lens bracket Dragon, Picro. President of World Economic News, Morgans. Open black lens bracket Sea King close black lens bracket Deep Current Umit. Storage Industry Boss, Hidden Master Kipson. In addition, other representatives of the four emperors and the government came to send gifts. Welcome everyone, the kings from the underground world. If you take the road to the castle, you may be a little late. Please come with me and take a shortcut. Under the Cake Tower, Bigmon's eldest son, Perospero, greeted these dark giants below. It's Perospero. Lick. If you don't mind, let me give you a ride, just use this. As Perospero said, he raised his hands to the side, and a large stream of candy liquid poured out beside him to form a solidified and gorgeous candy staircase. It's amazing. Residents of the town exclaimed when they saw this scene. No matter how many times you watch it, Perospero, your candy craftsmanship can be called art. Stussy and the others also looked at the candy stairs in front of them with surprise, and couldn't help but admire. Lick. I'm sorry, everyone, please, Mom, she doesn't like waiting for people. You are the last guests. After receiving their compliments, Perospero wiped his nose with his fingers and raised his hand in embarrassment to invite. Oh. I'm moving myself. Several people took Perospero's candy stairs and gradually ascended to the tea party venue. Lick. Get along well with your friends. Here, you can eat the candy stairs here in a few minutes. After a few people climbed the stairs and slowly lifted into the air, Perospero grabbed a dozen candies in his hands like a prankster and handed them to the children beside him, coaxing him very kindly. Caw. After several people from Stussy came up, they entered the reception hall through the verification of the gate, and the aroma of their respective delicacies and desserts instantly filled their nostrils. Suck. It smells so good. It gives a good taste here. Several giants took a sniff and couldn't help but smell the aroma that opened their index fingers. Oh. Welcome guests, how about some drinks? There is lava from Mount Mawuli, a beautiful woman who stabbed 100 men to death, and a giraffe with a strange voice. Sitting in the living room to greet them, it was General Smoothie. Well, let's have a glass of giraffe juice. Me too. The king of loan sharks and the others were naturally very familiar with the milkshake minister, one of the signature characters of the Charlotte family, and they were not very polite to her. They stepped forward and took the goblet. This is coming. Smoothie stood up and activated the ability on the giraffe's neck that was tied up. Wow. The giraffe's neck twisted and contracted in an instant, causing it to make a miserable and peculiar cry. Tick. Tick. Drops of juice-like liquid flowed down and were caught by a few people. They tasted the unforgettable drink in the cup elegantly and listened to the wonderful sound coming from their ears, and couldn't help laughing. Perfect, this wonderful sound and unforgettable taste are simply superb. Stussy, who was sipping the drink juice gracefully, everyone else took a sip and laughed. Clang. Oh, it's almost time. Mom, she's here too. 9:30, and the door to the Bigmom room opened, revealing Charlotte. Lin's sturdy and fat body, and everyone suddenly woke up and looked at her. Everyone has come from afar, it's really welcome, please look around, there are all kinds of desserts, everyone can enjoy it, everyone must have a good time and enjoy everything that happened today. The aunt spread her hands and gestured to the surrounding people who saw that all the desserts and delicacies were all printed in her eyes, and said hello. The desserts are ready, and all the decorations are in place. Next, please take your seats, even the nuns. The aunt saw that all the arrangements had been completed, so she invited the guests to sit and prepare to start today's tea party. Well, the nun looks very happy too, although I don't know how holy she is. A person who didn't know the truth wanted to test the identity of the nun in the photo and flattered her. That's right, nun, she's a light in the world to me. Aunt hadn't thought that he was testing herself. She was very happy to be so flattered. She recalled the beautiful images in her mind and said, full of memories. Chapter 173 _ Well, it's the first time I've attended a tea party. I don't know what kind of relationship the nun has with you, Auntie. This guy with short eyes thought that he would be able to test the person out in this way, so he directly asked her about the identity of the nun without thinking at all. Don't even try to test my information. However, after he asked that question, the aunt's face instantly turned cold, and the conqueror in the words exploded directly in his mind. Ah. Thump. This person was just a weak guy who couldn't stand the shock of Big Mom's conqueror hockey, so he only had time to let out a scream, and then collapsed with foam at the mouth. Okay, alright, one size for another, we've got a present for you, Charlotte. The king of loan sharks took the opportunity to make a round, holding up the treasure chest he was bringing in with both hands, and said. Well, I brought you a present too, Lin. Stussy also took the opportunity to ease the atmosphere and said. It's a treasure box, thank you so much, I'm so happy for giving me gifts every time you come, thank you. Aunt saw Stussy and the others put the treasure chest beside her. Her eyes flashed, and she said to a child like a child, and the atmosphere at the scene eased up again. ... Cheers. Do it. As the tea party began, the guests and the Charlotte family rejoiced, raising their glasses and clinking buckets. Boom. At this time, the wind whistled, the lightning flashed, and the endless black clouds rolled endlessly, making the hearts of the people on the entire island heavy, and even 26 breaths began to become difficult. A dull sound suddenly sounded in the sky, and a figure appeared out of thin air. At that moment, a cruel, noble, and cold-blooded will that seemed to collide between the heavens and the earth, carrying the 9 heavens thunder, soared down. Strong, domineering, this sudden will, forcibly rushed in, like the earth pouring down, overwhelming, crushing down. This is. With the crushing of this terrifying will, the wind and thunder on the entire scene changed. The sky, the originally deep thunder became more dense, and even the sea was churning endlessly. However, this world-destroying situation is not enough to shock. What is shocking is that in the dark and deep sky, the figure of the steed. First Emperor. Qin Luo. The whole world was silent. In this riotous world, everyone could hear their own heartbeats. At this moment, in the center of the world, there was only that slender man who did not look tall. The divine power is vast, like a god. Zhanyi's eyes are golden and white. Conqueror, under the pressure of unscrupulous bombardment, even one person resists Bigmom's conqueror, and then, slowly pushing, the figure walks towards Bigmom step by step. Boom, boom. With every step, the conqueror that collapsed to the ground that day became stronger. Boundless figure, arrogant and domineering, like a god, Qin Luo alone, directly and forcefully suppressed Bigmom's conqueror. That kind of impact. This for a moment, everyone who paid attention to the tea party watched through the snail signal, all held their breaths and looked excited. Bigmom, take today's tea party as your burial place. Qin Luo's eyes were like electricity, domineering, and he looked at Bigmom who had taken a step back with contempt. You're still here, but it's not the same as I imagined. Big Mom's face was gloomy, and his heart was full of anger. Originally, I wanted to recruit Qin Luo to marry his children, but I didn't expect that he would dare to provoke him at the tea party, which is unforgivable. Otherwise, what do you think? With one hand on his back, Qin Luo narrowed his eyes. The back, the power of Bigmom's children, even if Bigmom resisted in front, also felt an irresistible power. This man, just like a god, Haki Wushwang, carrying Wang Wang Tianwei. Is this the fifth emperor? Even more terrifying than before. Bigmom, today, I will flatten your cake island. Qin Luo looked at Bigmom with cold eyes, and his voice could not be rejected. Humph! With a cold snort, Bigmom did not have the slightest fear, and was still extremely proud, exuding the majesty of the emperor, and said coldly, then see if you have the ability. In an instant, the breath of the sky, the stirring clouds, the violent conqueror, the rolling like moving mountains and filling the sea, the whole sea, like a vortex, was constantly turning under Qin Luo's feet. Come on then. The terrifying temperature rises into the clouds, and the whole world is golden and white, the sea evaporates, the air ripples, Qin Luo's hair is mad, and the three-body, contains the breath of landslides and earth cracks, causing a circle of ripples, constantly suspended. Under the anger of this landslide, even the riotous world lost its color at that moment, and then it became chaotic again. A terrifying explosion, Qin Luo fell into the sky like a meteorite. The powerful impact made Bigmom even Vivi changed. Kill. Behind her, Nami was like the god of thunder, and violent lightning filled thousands of miles. Perona incarnates the devil-may-cry female sword god, and the sword energy is cold in the 19 states. The world is in need of reform. Fujitora sighed, then closed the wooden sword, and a fiery meteorite fell from the sky, crushing it down. The powerful attack, shocking the sky, like a torrent, like a cruel tiger, launched a brutal impact on the Bigmom camp. The power of Bigmom is also like a torrent, rushing towards the three of them incessantly. At that moment, the whole world was eclipsed, and looking down from the sky, millions of ants, brave and not afraid of death, carrying all kinds of power, violently collided together. Arrogant and arrogant, Qin Luo looked at Bigmom with contempt, ignoring Katakuri and other generals, and with a kick, carrying boundless power, facing Bigmom's head, he pulled away. Don't even think about it. Beside him, Katakuri was holding a trident, and he was about to stop Qin Luo's offensive, trying to lose Qin Luo's face. However, Qin Luo was dismissive and ignored Katakuri from beginning to end, because Katakuri had nothing, just not on the same level as Qin Luo. Crack! The ferocious thunder flashed, a big thunderfoot flashed, and Nami was Barb, and said coldly, you are not qualified to let the master take action. You. Furious, Katakuri gritted his teeth and strangled Nami directly. An instant, everything was in chaos. The four generals of Bigmom directly collided with Perona, Fujitora and others. At this moment, the war broke out in an all-round way. With a bang, a storm lifted the ground, and the bombardment spread in all directions, and the endless cracks were even more wrong. One hand of flame and one hand of thunder, Big Mom was furious and slammed into Qin Luo's feet. At that moment, the tyrannical impact flooded into a disaster. The eyes are golden white, like beating flames, the surrounding space, the temperature melts, all the pirates who are close to Qin Luo, gasify and turn into dust in an instant, so that within the fighting range between Qin Luo and Big Mom, there is no anyone exists. Feet were deep in the ground, Big Mom's bloated body swayed, and Napoleon on his head directly turned into a giant sword, facing Qin Luo, and slashed away. Like the light of extinction, in Qin Luo's right hand, a barbed spear turned into a meteor, pierced towards Napoleon, and pierced away. The frantic storm swept through, accompanied by a golden iron horse, a spark swept through, and Napoleon flew out. At the same time, from top to bottom, Big Mom clenched his hands tightly, flames and thunder entwined, facing Qin Luo's waist, bombarded away. The power it brought was like breaking the sea. Beast, shaking the space. His hair was flamboyant, Qin Luo's right hand was bent, and his elbow was pitch black, pouring down with the burning flames. The violent impact, the earth that has turned into magma, boils endlessly. Big Mom stands in the magma, resisting with difficulty. Feeling the burning temperature, Big Mom's face was ugly. If it weren't for his powerful constitution and the power of Prometheus, he would be really at a loss. However, if things go on like this, they can be safe in a short time, but after a long time, it will be a huge consumption. Resisting Qin Luo's elbows again, Big Mom stepped on the ground with both feet, and the huge body moved out. However, following closely behind, a violent figure, like a god in fire, with endless flames behind him, turned into weapons, overwhelming the sky and strangling him. Fire and thunder in the sky. Looking at the boundless storm of weapons, Big Mom raised his hands high, and in an instant, the Devil Fruit ability was used, and the entire sky hung upside down, endless flames and thunder, colorful, like a giant mountain, falling down. In the dark and dark, everything fell into collapse. However, in the destructive storm, from time to time, a muffled sound of fists and fists to the flesh was continuously transmitted. The fierce attack, Big Mom did not notice for a while. A mouthful of blood spit out from his mouth. Qin Luo's face was cold, his right fist was retracted, he turned over, and his right foot carried boundless power, kicking heavily on Big Mom's body again. The irresistible force, Big Mom groaned, and the entire huge body turned into a cannonball. However, Napoleon, who had turned into a giant sword at this moment, also seized the opportunity and issued a continuous slash. His eyes were cold, his knees collided, Qin Luo was in the air, facing the slash, and his figure gradually moved back. And because of this, Big Mom got a breather. Chapter 174 Scream. Roar. The falling rocks splashed, the violent body roared, Big Mom had flames in one hand, thunder in the other, his eyes were red, his mouth opened, and a strange sound oozing, like a devil climbing up from hell. His teeth and claws shattered his eardrums, which was terrifying rolled out. Vivi's eardrum hurt. Zhang Yi looked at the gust of wind that was swelled by the strange sound. The killing intent was proud, and the figure once again turned into a streamer. Compared with Qin Luo, who was safe and sound, the battlefield that has been far away, whether it was the power of Big Mom, or the pirates who came to the tea party by appointment, all covered their ears and rolled on the ground in pain. Bleeding out of breath. Ghost cries and wolf cries are of no use at all. The boundless breath suppressed, Qin Luo turned into Cheng Hong, two flaming blades in both hands, buzzing, and chopped away at Big Mom. Looking at Qin Luo's fierce attack, Big Mom didn't expect that under her innate strange voice, the other party didn't have the slightest difference, which made her a little embarrassed and angry. His hand and clenching it tightly, Big Mom grabbed Napoleon, faced Qin Luo, and slashed away likewise. For a time, a metal-like impact, waves of air lifted the surface, and the figures of the two disappeared at the same time. From time to time, swords swept across, and the flames and thunders roared violently. The sky and the ground are constantly collapsing, and everything is torn apart and cracked into slag. Suddenly, the clouds hung upside down, and a magic spear with a length of hundreds of thousands of meters, as if it came from a distant world, fell down like moving mountains to fill the sea. However, just as the magic spear fell, a flame and thunder swept across the sky, sinking deep into the clouds, and the next moment, the endless flames and thunder turned into whips of the sky, constantly entwining the magic spear, causing the layers to crack and turn into a sea of fire. Below, on the tumbling ground, Big Mom held Napoleon and held Qin Luo's right fist. The knees of both sides, like a giant mountain, kept colliding, and every blow could cause the mountain to collapse. There are sparks, everything is thrown into chaos, fists, hockey, fighting technique, all in one view. Have to say, Big Mom is really terrifying, tough and terrifying physical quality, strange fruit ability, observation hockey, armament, conqueror, physical skills, and even swordsmanship are also involved. This kind of monster is simply too strong. It can be seen from this that it is not easy to become an emperor, but Qin Luo is also not easy compared to Big Mom. Without giving in to each other, the two made a real fire, and slowly, they began to bear the blow of the other party, and the situation became more and more intense, and even blood hung from their mouths. However, judging from the current situation, Big Mom is at a disadvantage, but even so, it is impossible to judge who wins and who loses in the end. With the fierce battle between Chinluo and Big Mom, the forces under the two sides were also slaughtered together. Looking around, the entire Wangguo Island was in disarray, and the huge battle circle was slowly moving towards the Wangguo center, which is Cake Island. The stumps were broken, the blood was blurred, and there were corpses all over the place, which was disgusting. In this way, with the passage of time, the fighting became more and more bloody, and suddenly, on the boundless sea, the terrifying breath, from far to near, was coming quickly. One of them, the sword chi shot into the sky, accompanied by the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood. All those who blocked his way were slashed and smashed mercilessly. And behind this terrifying breath, countless broken ships floated on the sea. Shouting to the sky and shouting to the earth, shaking the sky, the entire world is in turmoil, grinning, swords colliding, and artillery fire is covered. The viscera of the broken arm and the ground, which can be seen everywhere, have been covered with blood, and the two sides, just at the beginning, fell into madness. A powerful impact, a pitch-black long sword, with arms rolling on it, saw Cracker's gloomy face, staring at the blind man whose fists were pitch-black and contained the earthquake tsunami in front of him. Every sword is like a mountain, which makes Cracker exhausted his strength. He doesn't understand why this man, why every blow contains 1,000 jins, 10,000 jins of power. Cracker, one of the 4 Admiral Stars, could not do anything for a while, which is a great shame. Damn, diaresis. Feeling the huge force from the tiger's mouth, Cracker flipped back in the air, and then landed on the ground with a murderous look on his face. Where are you? You've angered me. Pointing at Fujitora with a single sword, Cracker was furious and looked extremely ferocious. Today, the position of the 4 emperors is to destroy one person. The hand holding the wooden sword was lowered, and the breath of Fujitora's whole body spread around, containing boundless suppressive power. Looking for death. Fujitora's winning expression has completely lifted Cracker's sanity. For this reason, Cracker clapped his hands together, and for a moment, the Devil Fruit ability was activated, one by one tall, wearing a tandem main decoration helmet. Biscuit warriors, like a demon, he faced Fujitora and surrounded him. Dignified expression, Fujitora looked at the group of biscuit warriors and made an alert. Fujitora knew very well that each of these biscuit warriors contained enormous power. Even if he was himself, he had to go all out, and the number was so huge. I see how long you can hold on. Don't you have power? I'll see if you are infinite. Laughing wildly, Cracker hid behind the biscuit warrior, constantly using his abilities. For a time, even if Fujitora's sword was destroyed warriors, but behind him, the endless biscuit warriors did not decrease in the slightest. Fujitora's face was expressionless, and when he slashed down, it seemed to contain the power of the sky. With just one sword, he easily destroyed the biscuit warrior. Under Fujitora's gravitational sword energy, every blow was as heavy as a mountain. Obviously, Cracker also found this, so he chose not to fight Fujitora head-on. Instead he kept making biscuit warriors and wanted to slowly consume Fujitora. He didn't believe that Fujitora's power was inexhaustible. Under the number, even beasts must kneel. Thinking of this, Cracker sneered. As long as Fujitora approached, he backed away, and those endless biscuit warriors, who were not afraid of death, rolled away at Fujitora like machines. However, Fujitora's stamina seemed not to be exhausted, and the countless cookie warriors shattered one after another. Compared to Fujitora's side, other places have fallen into a stalemate. Diaresis, electric shock. There are many dense places, the whole ground is golden, and in the center, a huge going figure, like a giant, launched an attack on the high-jumping woman in front of him. Is this the ability of Guro Guro no Mi, Rumble Rumble Fruit? A tall and moderately tall, hat-wearing woman with wavy white hair, holding a long sword, looked at Nami. Charlotte Smoothie, one of the 4 dessert generals, Wang Jiao Jiao, just fall in hell. Thunder surged, carrying boundless power, and launched a sky-shattering blow against Smoothie. Smoothie Vivi bent over, her long and slender legs stepped on the pace, her long white wavy hair fluttered, and an earth-shattering cold light swayed upwards. There was a loud explosion, and a smoke of gunpowder spread around. Was little smoke, the endless sand and dust were blown away. Smoothie's eyebrows were cold, holding a long sword, looking at Nami proudly, and disdainfully said, "Then see if you have the ability." Nami waved her hand. Thousands of thunder and lightning sensation, a terrifying energy, swooped down. Vivi's face changed, and Smoothie quickly defended, tensing all over, holding the long sword tightly, and slashing out. Earth-shattering, a storm swept through, and I saw a continuous beam of light, constantly strafing, smashing countless pirates along the way. The grief was everywhere, and the blood flowed into rivers. A gully spread far away, and the residual fire was left inside, dividing the entire earth. The pirates who were lucky enough to escape, all looked at Nami with fear and trembling. Chapter 175 Electricity. In an instant, countless golden rays of light emanated from Nami's fingertips, as if transformed into an eternal meteor shower, blasting out indiscriminately. Looking at the light emitted by the woman that day, everyone around was horrified, and they all fled without thinking about everything. You are courting death. Seeing that because of Nami's attack, the power of the Big Mom pirates fell below, Smoothie's face was ashen, and the figure suddenly appeared in front of the going giant, and a sword swept across the sky. Head, Nami dismissed it. In front of her, a going-colored armor quickly appeared, and the weapon spread. She directly ignored Smoothie's slash, raised her fist, and even wanted to attack Smoothie frantically. A flick of her eyes, she noticed Nami's crazy movements. Smoothie showed her face, and instantly became embarrassed, so she had to put away the attack and chose to dodge. You are courting death. Ground. Smoothie exudes a deep cold breath, the swaying figure swells, a breath of landslides and cracks, rolls up sand and dust, and exploits it. You are courting death. Swinging, Nami's right fist, like a broken bamboo, fell towards Smoothie. Teeth. Smoothie looked at the tumbling giant fist, put away his long sword, and stretched out his perfect 5 fingers. Extract. The ground shook. Smoothie's whole body sank into the ground. Vivi's face turned white, then she raised her head and sneered at the thunder giant that Nami had condensed with thunder. How is that possible? With an exclamation, Nami's face was full of disbelief, because the right fist she sent to Smoothie, it was obvious to the naked eye that it quickly lost moisture and became withered. At the same time, Smoothie seized the opportunity and slashed, soaring upward, and slashed heavily on the chest of the thunder giant. With a grunt, the thunder giant retreated and sat on the ground. Raising the withered, discolored left arm of Going, Nami's face was full of shock. The huge body stood up, and Nami looked at the somewhat violent woman in front of her with warning eyes, and began to dignified. Obviously, the other party is a devil fruit ability person, and it is very strange. What shocked Nami the most was that the other party could actually cause substantial damage to herself through the arm of the thunder giant. Feeling the awkward feeling from the real arm, Nami found that most of the water, blood on her arm disappeared in an instant, which also led to the incompatibility of the arm. CGAC. Have you lost your sense of control over your arm? Now your left arm is useless. If you are interested, surrender, or I will turn you into a mummified corpse. Proud face, Smoothie's white hair fluttered, and he held a sword in one hand. For a moment, he was full of authority. What the hell did you do to me? Nami said coldly with her huge body standing upright, but in an instant, she used the activating ability of thunder and lightning to restore her arm to its original state. HMPH, I'm a squeezer who eats the fruit and can squeeze the water in the human body at will. I advise you, it's better to surrender, otherwise. Frosty, Smoothie threatening. Idiot. Nami manipulated the giant thunderbolt, slamming down with one foot, shaking the ground and shaking the mountain, with a look of disdain, and didn't care about the threat of Smoothie at all. This kind of self-reporting ability is either an idiot or a fool. Self-reported idiot. Since you are courting death, I will fulfill you. Seeing that Nami not only did not accept her solicitation, but instead launched an attack on herself, for a while, Smoothie's hair was flamboyant, and her figure turned into a cannonball, heading straight for Nami. The chaotic battle, the bloody eruption, the main force against the main force, was extremely slaughter. The blood splattered, the internal organs were covered, and as far as the eye could see, countless broken bodies fell down in the huge battlefield. The two sides only fought for a few hours, and the lives paid were calculated in thousands. Every moment, shouts of killing, mourning, and miserable laughter resounded throughout the battlefield. Outside, the forces watching this war all looked cautious, and could only watch from a distance, not daring to approach at all. Blood, flesh, hell on earth, scarlet heads and stumps can be seen everywhere. The whole scene, the smell of blood is soaring, full of disgust and vomiting. Suddenly, the sky changed drastically, the wind and clouds turned, and a bloody and brutal huge slash, with a scarlet color, connected the heaven and the earth, like a broken bamboo, as if no one was in the realm, pushing across. Ah! The screams were repeated, and under this sudden sword light, countless pirates under BIGMOM turned into minced meat and blood. What's the situation? Because of this sudden sword light, the entire dense scene condensed, and even the main forces of both sides slowed down the fight. The fierce, bloody, boundless sword swept into the sky, and I saw a figure flying across the sky, holding a scarlet long sword, like a hell, covering the sky and covering the ground. Damn it! The blood energy soaring to the sky, it is obvious that Corona has awakened the second stage of the female ghost sword, and the scarlet energy surrounds her body. She swept violently and arrogantly, and the ghost sword in her hand slashed down casually, a deep cold scarlet slash, one after another, facing the main camp of BIGMOM, rolling away. For a time, the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood, under this ruthless slash, some weak people had no resistance at all, and turned into pieces of meat in a blink of an eye. Is this woman a subordinate of the five emperors Qinluo? Who is it? She is so strong. This strength is simply the level of the emperor's deputy. The gully that crossed the sky was pitch black, and the blood on the ground shocked everyone. Hey! A strong blood-colored aura slammed towards Smoothie. The latter's expression suddenly changed, and he quickly stood in front of him. The next moment, a huge force hit his body unstoppably, causing Smoothie to directly fly out. Nami looked at Corona, a little surprised. This sister went crazy. Bai Yingying's hair stood on end. But it's good, she didn't want to deal with the disgusting thing Smoothie, and she actually learned this disgusting skill. Then I'll deal with Katakuri. Above the sky, the wind is surging, Qinluo's body is swaying with flames, and the stalwart figure seems to have suppressed an era. The powerful and boundless Haki has ripples, like a halo, and the ripples come out circle after circle. On the opposite side, BIGMOM has a gloomy face, blood dripping from his mouth, and burning wounds can be seen everywhere on his bloated body, but even so, BIGMOM has a flame in one hand, a thunder in the other, and a giant sword above his head. A terrifying breath. With the two as the center, there is no life at all, because the dazzling conqueror, like the power of nature, contains the breath of landslides and fissures, strangling everything. The sky is the same as God, and the ground is the same, even more bloody. Chapter 176_. Today, all nations will perish, and you, BIGMOM, will die without a place to be buried. Qinluo's eyes were golden and white, his waist-length hair fluttered, and the whole sky shook. It's just you. When the old lady became the emperor, you didn't know where to drink milk. Thunder crossed, the whole sky was torn apart, and endless black clouds bisected. At that moment, the whole world was dark. Old witch, it's not a pity for you to die. His eyes contained endless killing intent. Qinluo's body was full of cruelty, and then he waved one hand, looking at the bloody battlefield below, and said coldly. Presumptuous, what are you Qinluo? Today, you will die here. Qinluo's wild words directly angered BIGMOM. For this reason, he burst out violently, and the ferocious natural disaster power was like a mountain range. Looking at the impacted Bigmom, Chinluo turned into a meteorite with a grim face and fell away. As Chinluo and Bigmom collided, the sky was as dazzling as light, and the shocking explosions kept pouring out. Kill. Shaking the sky to kill the enemy. At this moment, everyone is crazy, densely packed, the sky is shocked, the ground is collapsed, the swords are intertwined, the artillery fire is in the sky, the blood is on the ground, and the stumps and internal organs are dyed red till the whole ground. Snack. A blue thunder light came suddenly, carrying boundless energy, and roared away towards Kataku, Lee. Nami, you are courting death. Soaring to the sky, Katakuri armed with a trident, armed, knowledgeable, and conqueror three-colored hockey sword into the sky, facing Mei, strangling him. Die. The power of the gods is vast. Nami descends like a god, and the thunder light on her right foot is terrifying, facing Katakuri, sweeping away. Cut and cut the rice cake. Strength, powerful ability, Katakuri's arm swelled, turned into glutinous rice, wrapped the trident, like a dragon going out to sea, blasting the ground. Flooded, a storm rolled up and tore out. Thunder spear. Condescendingly, Nami stepped on Katakuri's trident with a single foot, and lightning spread in her right hand, and a spear came in an instant. Sticky glutinous balls. With one hand and spraying sticky rice, Katakuri's figure quickly moved sideways, and the entire ground quickly separated. Electric thousand dragons. The sky resounded, the ground shook, and a terrifying creature devoured it, towards Katakuri, biting away. Flash of eyes, Katakuri's figure turned over and his right foot stomped on the ground. In an instant, the whole earth roared, and a violent aura spread out. Glutinous rice bow. Bending down, pulling away, standing, all in one go, Katakuri shot instantly. A handful of arrows, in pitch blackness, shot past the thunder dragon. Explosion, dazzling thunder. Nami seized the opportunity, passed through the explosion, appeared in front of Katakuri, grinned, knees to Katakuri, and rose to the ground. PFF'd. Blood splashed, Katakuri screamed, her eyes were red, her right arm was boiling, she even endured the heavy damage to her body, and bombarded Nami's chest away. It's too slow. The figure was like thunder, and if it appeared, Nami would escape in elemental form. But the next moment, Nami's face changed, she snorted, and a mouthful of blood came out of her mouth, because Nami's feet were stuck by a ball of dark glutinous rice. Ding! Sparks splashed everywhere, and the two faced fiercely, and their weapons collided heavily. Between the lightning and flint, Nami crossed with her right foot, kicked Katakuri, and Katakuri also stretched out one foot, like a boulder, bombing up. Violent strangulation, brutal energy, the two of you came and went, fists exchanged, just for a moment, the face was blue and purple, and the blood in the mouth turned into an afterimage. In the sky and the ground, there were constant explosions, and from time to time, a storm of destruction rushed out, causing the sky to collapse, which was extremely terrifying. Magnetic field transfer. Cold, Nami stretched out her hand, faced Katakuri, and pulled it sharply. The next moment, Katakuri's face changed greatly, and her body was uncontrollable, and she flew upside down towards Nami. It was so quick and so unexpected that Katakuri, who wasn't ready at all, took a punch from Nami, head on. Wow! He vomited again and again, his face flushed, and Katakuri bent over, slammed into the ground like a cannonball, and rolled out. At the same time, when Nami stepped on her right foot, the whole ground trembled, and countless rubble floated in the air, with a trace of gold dust in it, condensed and formed, turned into a spear, and shot straight at Katakuri. Damn! Like a thunderbolt, Katakuri's face was pale, and he only felt astonishing pain in his internal organs. However, that colossal force was surprisingly large. For a time, the trident in Katakuri's hand flew down, and his entire body flew upside down. Then, his throat sweetened, and he spit out a mouthful of blood again. Fall for me. With a flash of lightning, Nami appeared above Katakuri, and fell down with a huge foot. Gritting his teeth, His mouth was full of blood, and Katakuri roared in anger. He could only block with 2 punches for a moment. Violent explosion, flying sand and stone, hills rising from the ground, a wave of fluctuations, the sky collapsed. The wrath of Thor. Suspended, looking at the endless dust and falling rocks, Nami raised one hand high, lightning flashed, and slammed down, the entire sky rioted, and endless thunder covered it. The constant explosions describe natural disasters. The aura of destruction stirs everything. Nami, I want you to die. With a roar, the sky was shattered, and in the endless dust, the entire shattered ground changed, and endless glutinous rice was covered. Awakening glutinous rice thorn. The scalp was numb, and Nami stood high in the sky. Her complexion changed greatly, because in the endless smoke, a pitch-black thorn was as fast as lightning, stabbing directly at her heart. Thunder Beast. Roaring up to the sky, a beast from ancient times opened its bloody mouth and looked down. As the ground shook, Nami groaned, and a wound appeared on her right arm, bleeding non-stop. Looking at the bloody wound on her right arm, she stood in midair. Nami raised her eyebrows, and thunder and lightning strayed from her body, but it only scorched the wound for a moment, stabilizing the injury. Looking down, the endless smoke and dust dissipated, revealing the broken scene inside. The tattered, towering, ridged surface turned into glutinous rice at this time, and everything around it was changed. The awakened. Looking at the scene in front of her, Nami's heart sank. Nami, you must die today. Standing on the boundless earth, endless power poured into his heart. Katakuri pointed at Nami with one finger, his face full of anger. HMPH, let's see if you have that ability. Being provoked, Nami's eyes were blue, the whole sky rioted, endless thunder swirled, and the situation was extremely terrifying. Down, the atmosphere roared, and Nami went straight to Katakuri, with the boundless thunder behind her. 2. Chapter 177 _ Electric Blazing Blade. The figure stopped suddenly, a roar, and endless thunder fell from the sky, overwhelming the sky and drowning towards Katakuri. Glutinous rice rolls. When he stepped on his right foot, the earth that had turned into glutinous rice turned one after another, like a tornado, towering among the clouds, swallowing everything. The violent hurricane, the wanton thunder, the whole world, a bright white, the battle between the two is like a god and demon, and no one dares to approach. On the other side, this kind of terrifying battle was also being staged. Cracker's head, who was deep in the center of the heavy biscuit warrior, a pitch-black right foot, like a pillar of the sky, carrying the power of a meteorite, swept across. How is that possible? Full of shock, Cracker held a long sword and pressed it against his head with difficulty. A huge force spread from his arm to his body. In an instant, the entire ground exploded, and a huge deep pit spread out. Gritting his teeth, he felt the Tarzan-like power on his head. Cracker roared angrily, his feet were straight, and he wanted to fight back. Aware of Cracker's movements, Fujitora was expressionless in the sky, turned sideways, and kicked Cracker's chest with one foot. In that second, the sound of rubbing the atmosphere rolled in, making Cracker's hair stand upright. Armed Biscuit Heavy Armor. Armed, capable, and quick to turn, Cracker can only defend passively. PFF'd. His face changed, the stench rose from his throat, Cracker trembled, his entire body turned into a meteor, rolling on the ground, leaving a long broken gully. Figure landed and stood still. Fujitora looked at Cracker, who climbed up from the gravel, and said lightly, "Surrender." After speaking, Fujitora glanced casually at Cracker, panting, and then raised his head to look up at the two terrifying figures in the air under the thunder and lightning. With Fujitora's look, he didn't take Cracker in his eyes at all, because in Fujitora's eyes, the battle above was what he longed for. Because so far, he has not given up the ambition in his heart, that is to surpass that man. The fists were clenched, and the cold eyes were full of eagerness, because Fujitora really wanted to fight the Emperor. You. Looking at Fujitora's ignoring gaze, Cracker sullenly said, and said with a deep chill. Hearing the voice, Fujitora suppressed the restlessness in her heart and withdrew her gaze from the sky. For the first time, she really fell in love with Cracker, but those eyes were unusually flat. Looking for death, Cracker couldn't bear it any longer. His ability was activated, and a group of biscuit warriors, one after another, like a pack of wolves, flocked to Fujitora greedily. Squinting, looking at the rushing biscuit warrior, Fujitora raised his long sword, which gleamed brightly, and then slammed into the biscuit warrior, bombarding away. At that moment, the world seemed to freeze, and then the whole atmosphere shattered, and a huge force strangled out, instantly tearing all the biscuit warriors into slag. Eyelids twitched, Cracker's heart skipped a beat, even a little unbelievable. What kind of power is this? With endless questions, Cracker breathed slowly, staring at Fujitora warily. Zhangxing, that's all. There was a roaring voice. Cracker had clearly seen Fujitora in the distance just a moment ago, but suddenly, this voice resounded behind his ears. Hairs exploded, and without thinking about it, the long sword in Cracker's hand slashed out. The dust swayed, and an explosion resounded, followed by a wave that shook the ground like a mountain. How is that possible? Smoke was hazy, and in Cracker's perception, the opponent actually grabbed his long sword with his bare hands. Too weak. A disdainful voice sounded, accompanied by drops of scarlet liquid. Fujitora stood still. The fluorescent weapon in his right hand was boiling, grabbing Cracker's long sword, making the opponent unable to advance or retreat. Crack! The bone marrow voice sounded. Cracker was sweating profusely, and even looked at Fujitora in a fantasy, because the other party grabbed his long sword with one hand, slammed it, and then the weapon that accompanied him for many years, it turned out like this. Turned into two. Break! With a creepy voice, Cracker looked at the half-weapon in his hand with a look of horror. Ah! A violent scream, Cracker bent his body, his face twisted, and an air burst out from his back, and then the whole person turned into a cannonball and flew out again. Tearing out, with the smoke billowing, Cracker opened his mouth and vomited blood, clutching his chest, and fell to one knee on the ground. What is this powerful and strange ability, and why is it so strong? Feeling the constant whining from his body, Cracker raised his head, stood up unimaginably, then wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and looked at Fujitora more vigilantly. Huh! There was no sign. Just in front of him, Fujitora disappeared. At that moment, Cracker was tense all over, and observation hockey covered the sky overwhelmingly, but there was no breath. Where are you looking? The sound of teasing and questioning came. Cracker roared angrily, and in his right hand, a biscuit spear suddenly condensed, carrying terrifying power, facing the sound, stabbed straight away. Pretzel. Kill. Disdainful, Fujitora's hands glowed with fluorescent light, and he pushed gently towards the attacking spiral spear. Then, under Cracker's unbelievable gaze, the attack he made kept folded, until it finally turned into a thin one. Layer cookies. Ah! With a scream, a right foot pierced through, making the atmosphere sensational. Cracker whined, and once again, turned into a streamer. It's a totally asymmetrical fight, and in Fujitora's hands, Cracker's endless cookie fighters are completely useless. Because the ability of the other party is too strange and too powerful. Damn! Covered with gravel, blood was spitting out of his mouth. Cracker stood up embarrassedly, his face grim. Through it, the atmosphere vibrated, and there was no time for Cracker to breathe. Fujitora's cold figure appeared, right foot, and swept out. Sudden burst pretzels. Anger was hard to dissipate. Cracker's eyes were blood red, and a biscuit-long sword was condensed in his right hand, and then sparks radiated, containing terrifying energy, and stabbed Fujitora straight. Gravity destruction. Body was soaring. Fujitora's eyes were gleaming with cold light, his fists were clenched, his blue veins were exposed, and his abilities and weapons were covered, which contained the power like moving mountains and reclaiming the sea. Go to hell. Seeing that Fujitora didn't dodge, but confronted him head-on, for a while, Kaylee framed the corners of his mouth, and his eyes were full of mockery of Fujitora. Ding! As if hard iron collided, between the two, a storm swept through, directly raising the surface, forming waves and submerging them out. Bleeding from the corner of his mouth, the figure couldn't stop stepping on the ground. After leaving deep-set footprints, Cracker bloodthirsty looked at Fujitora, who was rolling back and bleeding from his fists. As for Fujitora, he suppressed the rolling in his body, raised his fist, looked at the hole and wound on the top, and his face showed disdain. Then with a flick, the blood splattered, and Fujitora was no longer interested in playing with this so-called general star. He has to take it seriously. The space rippled, and again, Fujitora disappeared without a trace, not even a breath. No, still no, whether it was observation hockey or perception, the man disappeared again. In an instant, Cracker's scalp was numb, and he could only passively be vigilant, because the opponent was too terrifying. Chapter 178 _ The other side. Two sky-shattering slashes cut everything, collided violently, and swayed endless sand and dust. The metal collided, and the dazzling sword energy was vertical and horizontal, and the entire earth was torn into slag. Perona. The solemn voice resounded, and I saw Smoothie holding the long sword in both hands, and her face was ugly against the bloody woman in front of her. Yo, nice prey. His eyes were bloodthirsty, like a beast, causing Smoothie's pressure to increase sharply. Perona's eyes were red, like a monster. It was very easy to resist Smoothie's attack, and the demonic eyes looked down on Smoothie in a playful manner. Looking for death. Perona's contemptuous gaze instantly made Smoothie feel unbearable provocation. Those long, slender, white-stained legs twitched directly into the atmosphere, creating huge waves, facing Perona's chest, ferocious. Hit away. Evil look on his face, Perona pressed the hilt of the sword with one hand, and with the endless storm, Shiryu sank his feet into the ground, and looked at Smoothie somewhat unexpectedly. How is that possible? With a face full of stun, Smoothie couldn't believe her attack, but she was easily stopped by the other party. As one of the four generals, you shouldn't be so weak. Eyes stared, Perona looked at Smoothie with electric eyes, and kicked out the same kick. The situation was extremely terrifying. A violent impact, Smoothie quickly retracted his long feet, and then his arms spread and touched Perona's feet. The two of them took a few steps back almost at the same time. Put out all your strength, I don't have time to play with you. Perona raised her head and looked at the battle like a god and a demon in the sky. She only felt that her blood was boiling, and he was eager to fight the Emperor now. Damn! Seeing Perona's visceral contempt, Smoothie felt nothing but a surge of anger that shot up to the sky. Extraction powerful form. Smoothie didn't lose her mind, she could clearly feel the horror of the woman in front of her, especially the faintly diffused breath in her body, which made her feel cold all over her body. For this reason, Smoothie didn't talk nonsense, and directly put out all the power, using the ability of Devil Fruit, fully squeezed its own potential, and wanted to completely kill the woman in front of her. Well. Feeling the storm-like force on the opposite side, Perona lowered her head and finally started to face it. Hey! Without warning, Smoothie appeared beside Perona, and the long sword in his hand was slashed across Perona's head. A violent collision, the ground behind Perona exploded directly, and Perona, with half-squinted eyes and a ghost sword in one hand, easily stopped in front of Smoothie, blocking the cold light Lingling's attack. Impossible. With a face full of shock, Smoothie couldn't believe it. Now, even Katakuri had to go all out with his speed, but this woman, in the flash of lightning, accurately blocked her attack. Heart! Smoothie blushed, her figure once again turned into an afterimage, invisible to the naked eye, and she kept attacking Perona. But time and time again, Perona seems to be able to foresee her movements, always blocking her attacks at critical moments. You must know that Smoothie is now using the power of Devil Fruit to extract the potential in her body. If it takes a long time, yes, she will be doomed. With the last collision, the endless falling rocks and flying, Perona still stood in place, but the surrounding ground formed an abyss, full of sharp breath. Huh! Sweating profusely, Smoothie stood in the distance, with a pair of phoenix eyes, staring at Perona, who was light and cloudless, and there was a storm in her heart. It's over. With indifferent eyes, Perona held the ghost sword diagonally. Vivi tilted her head, and looked at Smoothie with some ridiculousness. Your observation hockey, can you foresee the future? Smoothie thought of a possibility, that is, this man, just like Katakuri, observation hockey developed to the deepest level, foreseeing the short-term future. Foresee the future. Perona was obviously taken aback, then reacted with disdain on her face. I am a swordsman, the purest swordsman. Proud, fierce, and arrogant. After Perona said these words, an earth-shattering sword energy suddenly emanated from her entire body, and the entire sky shook. Even if they were far apart, the bloody battle place felt that the body was full of cold, as if a sword was suspended above his head, shocking the soul. The invisible storm of sword energy stirred up the wind and clouds, spreading out in all directions. The atmosphere wailed, the ground shattered, and Shiryu's eyes were like sword light, terrifying. The reason why Smoothie can't hit Perona no matter how she attacks, because the swordsman's intuition of the second stage of the female ghost swordsman directly makes the body make the movement. There is no need for Perona to order the body through the brain, but the body automatically makes it. Action. For a long time, swordsmen have always attacked with super strength. It is famous all over the world. Among them, sword chi, sword posture, and swordsman intuition are different from armament, observation hockey, and conqueror. Because for the pure swordsman, these three must be combined, just like the strong must have three-color hockey. This is the testimony of a strong. Among them, the fierce, sharp and cutting sword energy is even more suitable for swordsmen for armament, because armament is more useful for defense besides attacking. The sword chi, on the other hand, is just an attack, abandoning the defense. It seems to be more pure, and it is even more terrifying for this. As for the sword stance, that is to become a great swordsman, and his unique momentum is different from that of the conqueror. The sword stance is more destructive, aggressive, and fierce, which is enough to fight against the conqueror. The last swordsman's intuition, like observation hockey, has 5 sense perceptions such as prediction, insight, avoidance, etc. Even for a swordsman, the swordsman's intuition is the most suitable. Therefore, based on the comprehensive appeal, if you want to become a real swordsman, even a great swordsman, you must have the intuition, sword chi, and sword power of a swordsman, otherwise, you will not be a swordsman. This is why, in the entire world, aside from some weird and powerful devil fruit abilities, swordsmen are the most terrifying reason. Chapter 179 _ The scalp was numb and could not stop backing away. Smoothie felt the bone scraping sharp breath, and a rare hot sweat appeared on her forehead. This sword force, you are not a great swordsman. With a face full of disbelief, Smoothie just feels like a fantasy. Guess. Full of teasing, Perona held the long sword in one hand and held it high. A terrifying storm of sword energy, like the substance, rushed into the dark clouds, forming a black hole, illuminating the whole world. The wind and thunder roared, and the endless black clouds surrounded the beam of light, spinning constantly. At that moment, the sky was broken. This chilling aura directly suppressed the entire land of war. Everyone raised their heads and looked at the figure under the boundless beam of light in panic. Is this the power of the great swordsman? No, how can it be so powerful? How can a swordsman reach this level? Outside, in the distant sea, looking at the scene where the situation changes, no matter who it is, his face changes greatly. Provoke the captain, die. Serious expression, Perona put away the sarcasm, and pressed her right hand sharply. The beam of light that towered into the clouds seemed to split the heaven and the earth, facing Smoothie, crushing it up. The sky collapsed, and the breath-like moving mountains and reclaiming the sea, mercilessly, fell down with a humming sound. Damn, how can it be so strong? His face was pale, Smoothie couldn't care less, blood dripped from his mouth, and he squeezed his own strength with all his strength, holding the long sword in both hands, roaring, and waving it up. Ohm, ohm, ow. In the dim sky, endless hills stood up, the entire earth was cracked, and countless cracks were torn apart. Under this beam of sword energy, all turned into fly ash. For a long time, the sky was torn apart, the earth was destroyed, and it pointed to eternity. Finally, the smoke and dust dissipated, the entire island shook, and then divided, turning into large and small fragments, an abyss that spread to the horizon. Everyone, with their mouths open, their faces stunned, looked at the scene like a natural disaster in disbelief. Smoothie, diaresis. With siblings, all roaring, it was hard for them to imagine that Smoothie would still be alive under this attack. Huh, interesting, he's still alive. Suddenly, Perona's eyes stared, and in the pile of rubble, he saw a tattered dress, and Smoothie, whose body was covered in wounds, stood up staggeringly. Stepping up, Perona walked towards Smoothie, her eyes were full of surprises. This was the first person who was still alive under the second stage attack of her female ghost swordsman, which was enough to make Perona look at it with admiration. Blood didn't stop, and when she swayed up, Smoothie only felt that her whole body was about to collapse, and the deep cold breath like scraping bones kept invading her soul. Whoosh, whoosh. With a bang, several figures with a strong aura landed, all of them defended beside Smoothie, holding Perona with a solemn expression. These are all children of Big Mom. For the appearance of these people, Perona was dismissive, without even a single pause in her footsteps, she walked directly towards the crowd and stepped out domineeringly. Along with Perona's every step, the boundless sword power on his body, like a tsunami, rudely crushed several people. Unstoppable trembling, everyone was almost in a cold sweat, this feeling, as if they were facing their mother, the shocking sense of oppression made them breathless. Suddenly, Perona stood still, Vivi tilted her upper body, hung the ghost sword around her waist, and then put her right hand on the hilt of the sword. Seeing Perona's action, and feeling the knife-cutting breath in the air, Smoothie and the others, all of them were like enemies, couldn't help but swallowed. Die. The sharp eyes seemed to turn into sword light. Perona looked at Smoothie and the others, and announced the results of everyone. Damn, we are mother's children, what are you? Kill him. Unable to bear, Perona's face was really annoying, and at that moment, the people who descended on Smoothie, all facing Perona, rushed up. Quick, retreat. Behind him, Smoothie felt the hellish vibe and tried to stop her siblings, but it was too late. Devoured by evil spirits. Yan. The world is dim, a white light, a moment of brilliance, between the sky and the earth, it seems eternal, time is frozen, the next moment, it spreads violently, the atmosphere is separated, and the entire surface is boundless sand and dust. No. Deku Lachao, anything, before this white light, is divided into two halves, visible to the naked eye, endless limbs are broken, and no grass grows wherever the white light goes. Screams, wailing, and fear were all drowned under this fan-shaped white light. Taking a deep breath, she stood up. Perona's face was pale, and it was obvious that Gao Cheng's two blows with all his strength had consumed her mind. Climbing up and looking, starting from Perona, at the very front, there is a fan-shaped land that stretches for tens of thousands of meters. This kind of natural disaster-like terrorist attack is simply unimaginable. Some people who watched through special means all swallowed their saliva and looked terrified. Diaresis, unbelievable, he is still alive. Suddenly, Perona frowned, looking a little ugly, because in her gaze, a figure on the verge of death was still breathing. Stepping past, standing in front of Smoothie, who had lost his ability to move and his face was pale, Perona dismissed it and raised the ghost sword in his hand. Just because you guys who are beyond your own power, dare to resist Wang Qian's first emperor pirates, I have to admire your courage. Wanting to struggle, Smoothie's eyes were full of hatred, but the almost separated body made her feel powerless. PFF'd. Blood spewed, a head full of hatred, flying into the sky, and the blood in the sky continued to splash. At this point, the first general star fell. As if killing an ant, Perona looked up and looked at the sky, the battle of the landslide. Unstoppable excitement, Perona could not suppress the desire in her heart, but in the end, Perona gave up. Now, it is not the time for him to fight with the Emperor, nor is it when she intervenes in the battle of the Emperor. Moreover, without Qin Luo's order, she didn't dare to do so. The restlessness in her heart with difficulty, Perona took her eyes back and looked at other battlefields. Chapter 180 _ The ferocious figure, Haki increased the crowd, the blood splattered, the whole hell on earth. The broken limbs and broken arms covered the entire ground, blood flowed into rivers, and the entire venue was fighting fiercely, extremely bloody. A figure suddenly turned into a streamer, smashed through countless hills, and finally hit the ground heavily, and the surroundings melted into the appearance of vulcanized biscuits. Following closely behind, a figure passed by, and then slammed heavily on the ground, exuding a sky-high aura. Why is your strength so strong? From the pit, Charlotte Cracker stood up. Quick fight. Standing proudly, Fujitora Isho's wrinkled face, Vivi Isho, glows with kindness. Damn. Feeling the disdain of Fujitora Isho, Cracker was full of anger. The entire deep pit began to melt, and the biscuit warriors turned into black vortexes and gathered around him, covering his whole body, as if he was wearing an irresistible armor. Double roll pretzel, _ Cracker flew out directly like a cannonball, tapped the shoulders with the ability of the biscuit fruit to grow a pair of new arms on the original arms, and then rotated the two swords copied from the biscuit armor continuously and stabbed forward to Fujitora Isho. Gravity Knife Tiger. Fujitora's eyes were flat, and he noticed Cracker's movements. He accumulated gravity on the knife and slashed it out. At the same time, he released a huge horizontal gravity to the trajectory of the swing, crushing and destroying everything in front of him. Even if the item is not destroyed, it will be knocked out by the huge wind pressure generated by its gravity. Armament was boiling, like falling from the sky, and it slammed heavily with Cracker's sword. Earthquake tsunami, the ground under the two people's feet, instantly vaporized, surging out, producing a huge explosion. Shock. Air vibrated, and suddenly, a shock wave suddenly came from Fujitora's sword, causing Cracker's face to change greatly, and he flew out. Watching Cracker fly upside down, Fujitora suddenly swung a flying slash. Meteorite. That slash swelled rapidly, the slash like a meteor and fireworks, turned into a sphere the size of a meteor in the blink of an eye, with a strong momentum, followed closely behind, and crushed Cracker away. A terrifying mushroom cloud swept across the sky, and a dark smoke of gunpowder set off everything and turned it into a storm. People outside the battlefield, watching this scene, opened their mouths and looked at the middle-aged man walking in kimono in disbelief. Cough, cough. In the distance, in the huge deep pit, Cracker's face was full of confusion, and he couldn't stop vomiting blood, and he didn't even respond. Breathing heavily, Cracker stood still and looked at Fujitora in the distance with a solemn expression. Damn. Once again, Cracker rushed out like a volcanic eruption, carrying the rolling annihilation gas, and launched an offensive against Fujitora. Death to me. Fists turned into biscuit cannonballs, crushing them towards Fujitora's head. Boom, boom. A dull impact, Fujitora put away the wooden sword and grabbed both Cracker's hands with ease. How is that possible? Cracker's face was incredulous. You must know that when his fists turned into a vulcanized state, the aura that could melt was comparable to sulfur. Even going would melt, but the other party actually grabbed him with his bare hands. This makes Cracker difficult to accept. The boiling arms, Fujitora saw that his hands were pitch black, like dragon claws, his fingers spread out, and he firmly grasped Cracker, causing the former to be unable to advance or retreat. CGAC, your strength is not enough. Fujitora's right foot penetrated the atmosphere, like a star strike, and kicked it on Cracker's stomach. At that moment, Cracker's eyes seemed to bulge out of their sockets, and a large mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth, and then flew past and moved out on the ground. A long gorge of terror. Damn! Blocked in the rubble, the ground turned into liquid in the blink of an eye. Cracker's face was covered in blood, and he looked at Fujitora with some horror. The pressure was too enormous. The internal organs in his body have been smashed by Fujitora, and the dark vision gradually erodes his mind. Before he died, the only thing he thought about was when the first Emperor pirates would come out with a combat power that could rival Admiral. Nami is fighting against Katakuri, the strongest of the 4 generals. Even if her integration with Raytheon is not 30%, the strength of her combat power is unmatched by the opponent. The Peerless Donuts. Quote. Katakuri didn't move, but the ground under his feet automatically turned into a flowing glutinous ball and flew towards Nami. Facing the slow glutinous ball, Nami took advantage of Lei Shun and naturally escaped without falling. Powerful Mochi. The cold voice made Nami tremble, and Observation Haki quickly opened up to realize that the attack was not launched from Katakuri on the ground, but from the hole in the donut behind her. Flash. There was a thunderous explosion under Nami's feet, giving Nami a support point, allowing Nami to escape the attack behind her. But just dodging the attack, Nami found a huge fist wrapped in armament behind her. The powerful fist wanted to tear Nami's body to shreds on the spot. Armament Haki. Iron. Nami instantly cast armament on her attacked abdomen, while her body wanted to retreat. At the same time, I saw Nami's footsteps wriggling, and another donut formed on the ground. Powerful Mochi. Nami couldn't avoid it, and she also punched the fist wrapped in Wanjin thunder. Boom. Invisible air waves spread around. This time, Nami had the upper hand, and the fist made by the Mochi was directly broken by Katakuri. Nami rose into the air, thunder flashing around her body, and wherever the thunder went, it was invincible.